everyone. How's it
Hello.
going?
Hello,
It's us,
everyone.
the Law Crimes people. Hello. What's happening?
Welcome back, criminal scum.
Andy, we didn't even have time to start, and there's already a VTuber comment.
Yes.
Are you sure you're not a Farseer?
Oh no.
DJ Beast again commenting about how Colin has actually made his bed, and when
Big
will
days.
he watch any movie?
Never.
Well, that first one, it's a little bit rough right now, but you'll do what you got to do. The second one, don't ask me that one.
When's the last time you went to the cinema?
It's been months, and
He's
before,
never been to the
there were
cinema.
long months between them. I think the
Jeez.
last movie I saw in theaters was Oppenheimer.
God, what a thing
Better
to
than
go
me
back
too.
to.
I mean, it was a good movie.
Mhm.
It had a little bit too many boobs in it for my taste, though.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to say the last movie I saw in cinema was the last Star Wars film that came out, so that was way
Oh my
back.
gosh, Andy.
Wait, episode 9.
Wait, like
What?
Yeah.
what a horrible movie to.
Yeah.
end
That's
these
why I haven't
days.
been
Jesus.
back. I'm like, I've been scarred. I can't go
But,
back to
but
cinema.
Andy,
It's
now we're
tainted.
all the Sith. I'm all the Jedi. Isn't that
I'm all the
cool?
Sith, I'm all the
Didn't
Jedi,
you get
and
that?
I am all the fast food chains.
Did you like the fleet of or Death Star
Yeah.
Star Destroyers?
Yeah.
And
Just
then they
turn the
kiss.
thing off and on again. It's fine.
they kissed.
They
and then
can't
he
fly
died.
up. It's fine. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that toss. We're here to talk about some other toss. Colin, what are we talking about today?
The episode 9 of the Warhammer Law.
Oh, come on.
We are talking about craft worlds today, the 5 major ones, as there are a decent amount of craft worlds, but a lot of them have lore that just straight up doesn't mean anything. So it's really just
pain.
going to be the main big 5: Alatak, Altansar, Ulthwé, Ayandin, and Bael'tan.
Before that, though, we do have to, I think, get into the question of the week, as we did. I think we asked last time, what would you do if you had
Skip
immortality?
Yeah, you did. I was waiting for
I
a chance to say
I didn't mean to say Altansar.
it.
So we asked people last week what would they do if they had immortality within the Warhammer universe, and there were some responses. We had the first one here by at Spartan Pipperpool6229. He puts #immortal. I would stand by Manfred's corpse, guarding it from getting resurrected, and use his grave as a latrine, just in case he got resurrected. So he turned into a shit demon. And the first character that meets him would immediately
not a
purge
turd
him.
demon. We don't need that.
Nice.
I think a donation here by Rolf. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you,
by the way.
Rolf.
He says a special thank you to Colin for introducing me to the glory that is Gotrek and Felix, and especially the
Hell
funny
yeah.
Rat Man. Also, what are the group's
Good.
thoughts of the End and the Death volumes? We might have to save our thoughts on a specific essay, because there's a lot to go through. That's
To
basically
my
spoiler
shame,
heaven.
I have not even started The End and the Death yet because I'm waiting for all
Wow.
of them on audiobook
That's
to be
surprising.
in my library. That's the only ones I haven't done. I've done all the Siege of Terror, I've done all of Horus Heresy. Just need to catch up with those now they're ruled out.
For a quick thought from someone who hasn't read them, it seems the consensus from everyone I've heard talk about it is it did not need to be 3 books.
Quite long.
So,
The Hobbit movie effect.
Yeah, essentially, it could have. It could have been just 2 very long ones, though, because I think the middle book, the gap between those threads being closed, it was clearly Dan Abnett didn't want to make it 3 books, but it is what it is.
Someone at GW realized they were running out of Horus Heresy.
Yeah, keep it going, edge it just a bit longer. I have another one here by at Killer Orca. Thank you. It's good. I mean, same thing, really. I'd spend my time fucking with the big movers and shakers of the series. There must be some massive painting on Terra depicting a glorious victory by Lord Solar Leonidas, or Leontus, sorry. And then in the corner, that's me in the Aquila gang puffy jacket throwing the Aquila. Gang. Doing some warfare there.
The Supreme Jacket.
nice.
DJ Beast. We have one by the illustrious DJ Beast,
Yeah.
regular supporter of the channel. He puts, I'm going full Colin with this. I'd go on the biggest degenerate journey across the galaxy, from Comra to the Ghoul stars. Nowhere is safe. The Neurolictor got me acting unwise.
Oh, come on.
Good
Come
man.
on.
Oh, brother. And the last one here is by at Gage Brown 9915. He put, "I'd flip off Nagash, content in the knowledge he could never do anything about it."
Nice.
That's pretty good, to be fair.
L.
He probably could do
He's
something
coming
about
for
it,
you.
though. He probably could do something about it, to be fair, because Nagash is nothing but petty and has ego problems the size of an entire universe.
The mortal realms belong to him, and no one else just realizes it yet.
We're all just living in his world. To be fair, though, that was. Thank you so much for your submissions for that one. People have suggestions for other questions that we do. We'll take them. We appreciate that support. But we do have another one, I do believe, Andy, for this week. Do you want to explain what the question? Oh, sorry, Colin. Do you want to take it?
I'd just like to briefly get in and complain about the poll. Andy, I
Oh.
can have carbs as long as I have my insulin.
Yeah, but how many can you have before it becomes a problem?
The only problem there is my weight.
True.
There was another
Yeah.
comment that I didn't include where someone said, if Colin became immortal, would he have to change his channel name to Pancreas Now Works?
I was gonna ask if we needed
immortal? Am I immortally diabetic?
Yeah, I was gonna need an immortal insulin pump too.
No, it's just you have a superpower of giving people diabetes. Like, ha ha ha. And like, oh, well, I wanted a sandwich, but oh.
I want
The
a
effects in a
sandwich.
few hours. And then it's going to be really bad if you don't have insulin.
We're in a
Nagash,
fight right
no
now with a
fear.
big war,
Insulin.
but 20
no
minutes,
insulin.
oh, you're going to feel
True
it.
fear.
Yeah, like
so-
everyone's putting their pikes down. They just hear the beep. It's like, sorry guys, just go. Anyway, yeah, today, because we're doing some Eldar stuff, some Eldar scum, some knifier stuff, our hashtag is hashtag path. Which path of the Eldar would you create if you could make one for yourself? Has anyone got an example of one they'd make in the team of a fun Eldar
Path of bad taste. You get to enjoy movies like the 9th Star Wars film, and like you just wholeheartedly like open weeping cry at how amazing crappy adaptations are, and therefore you'd be the happiest person in the room, but everyone
They
Yeah.
start crying oily
Everyone
tears.
thinks you suck.
I know that would be like Path of the Bad Taste, or like in something better than that.
My
I'm sure
favorite
someone's
movie
got-
is Solo, a Star Wars story. Like, ugh, no.
Listen, okay, the Witcher adaptation is by far the most superior TV adaptation that's
Oh,
ever
man.
been. Oh god, I can't
All
even
right. Okay.
My boy.
Clearly, it's the Halo show.
Oh, the amount
maybe
of
should
cope
explain.
I've seen in the comments are like, no, season 2 is quite good. You should watch it. I'm like, I'm not watching that show.
I compared to a 1 out of 10, a 3 out of 10 is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What's a 1 out of 10 for you though?
The Halo show
The Halo
season
show.
1.
Yeah.
God, that is horrible.
They don't even know
Oh,
your
man.
action set it.
As of time recording, do you like the bit in the trailer for season 2 where he told Cortana to shut up because clearly Master Chief would say that to Cortana?
Oh man.
Because
Shut
the
up,
pain on your
bitch.
face, man. The pain on your face is. Oh God!
I
Why do you have to wear
love
the helmet?
modern Halo. I love the modern game industry. We talk about elves.
Yeah.
It's supposed
yes.
to be my happy place right now.
Yeah, we
We're
have to
talking-
mediate it with a little bit of despair before we get Colin in his happy place. That's how it works.
Something that's a little bit more, bit warmer to the heart though. A kind of favourite of Colin. Well, I think Fancy probably kickstarted it for you, right, Colin? But then Eldar and 40k is still a dub.
Yeah, they're my little 40k enclave.
We're gonna go into Craft Wars though. Life in the Craft Worlds. Who's got the best, racing stripes on their Craft World? Who's got everything? We're ready to go in. Let's go.
All right, Eli, you want to take us away with the beginner?
Yeah, I can start a little bit. We are talking about craft worlds, as Colin said, the big five. We might say one or two things about everyone else, but most of the craft world lore is craft worlds dying and losing, so we might skim past it. more or less.
I shouldn't have given it so much hype in the beginning. Then.
Well, the
Welcome-
big
welcome
five are
to-
cool. Okay, the big five are
Welcome
cool.
to depression.
It's like when like GW, like I don't know what book about like the Guard or something, and a Space Marine chapter you've never heard of shows up. They're going to die to make the main character do something important.
Yeah.
True.
For context, the Craft World is basically a like continent to moon-sized big giant spaceship that is pretty much a giant city and living place for the Eldar. They all ran away when before the fall happened, so they were the last ones to survive, other than the Drukhari and the Exodites. They have their little infinity circuits where all their dead reside and float around in the Craft World, so they're protected from Slaanesh. The main Craft Worlds, we got Alatok. They have lots of cool rangers because they're very stuck up and a lot of people don't want to live there. They also have a good fleet and they're smartsy smarts. It's battle, same hands, really fast. They're red. They have like tribal families and stuff. They're one of my favorites. Bealtan is very militaristic and returns to tradition type of guys. Ulthwé is Eldrad, and what's the last one that Eandon is the yellow guys who have lots of Wraith Lords, lots of spear
Custard.
stuff. They got eaten by Tyranids, so they have probably the most lore, which again is just them being eaten by Tyranids, but it's there.
They're the only ones with the Codex supplement,
Yeah.
written by Matt Ward.
Yeah.
These poor
Oh.
girls.
My favourite's the Black Library because they publish Warhammer books.
Yeah.
I
I always forget that that's a Craft World, yeah.
Yeah, that always throws me off.
Mm-hmm. And then we
the
have
naming convention's just weird, isn't it? Though, why?
Yeah.
Like Alatok, Orthway, Black Library. It's like-
We had a nice Gaelic thing going, and then suddenly Black Library.
Yeah, and all the Eldar are just there going, shh.
I do have a small question though. Were the Craft Worlds when they were made? Were they simply just merchant things in the beginning? I don't know if I'm getting that right, or they were simply exile ships designed by people who were like, "That's cringe. I'm going to go away from society and study the blade."
Eli, do you want to get it?
I don't remember.
Oh,
if I'm being honest.
They were basically just merchant ships. Like their whole thing was, because they had no like warp drives on their ships, they just kind of floated between the Eldar Empire. So they saw how everyone else was getting a little bit too goofy for their liking, and then they started like evacuating like art, culture, people, all the stuff they could take off of them that wanted to leave what was the Eldar Empire that was pretty quickly circling around the drain by that point.
Yeah, well, someone asked if they missed the Exodites in the chats. You did not miss the Exodites. They do exist, but they're not a Craft World, so
They're not.
they also
They're
don't
on
have any
worlds.
lore. Last I checked, they have dinosaurs and Ted Kaczynski, and that's it. I don't know.
To be fair, there'll probably be a kill team at some point.
Yeah, that'd be
hopefully.
nice. They are really cool.
Friggin-
Maiden worlds are nice and pretty.
That
But
was
lastly,
cool that Clancy Brown voiced an Exodite in the Warhammer show. I was like, oh, it's Mr. Krabs. That's pretty cool.
there's the Mogon Raw's Craft World has a little bit of lore. Is that Altanzar? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's Altanzar.
They got
I
thrown into the
accidentally
warp
cucked
and then
Simon out of a spot.
and then and then they got rescued by Mogon Raw later on. But yeah, that's the very basic rundown. I really can't go in depth at all because there's not enough, otherwise I'll just take away from Colin. But I'll talk about Bealtan later. And Colin's going to talk about the other guys. But right now.
Indeed. So yeah, this is not strictly speaking history of any Eldar in particular, although when we get to Ulthwé, that's going to be real hard to pull off. But, just like the Craft Worlds as a whole. So like Eli said, and, Hal, they've all got the same basic origins. They were really just glorified trading vessels, although that in mind, trading vessels with space elf magic to their very core. So, they're still big planet-sized magical ships, but compared to the rest of the Eldar Empire, nothing, too great. And no warp engine, so instead of, going through the warp like the Eldar still could have by that point, they just kind of floated across reality. And
That's
this
a
led
dumb
to the...
question. Are
Go
some
nuts.
Craft Worlds bigger than other as in like literally in size? Are some Craft Worlds
Yeah.
bigger than others?
Mhm.
There's no, like, standard one-size-fits-all for the Craft Worlds, and some of them have come down with a bad case of getting exploded.
big.
So,
Okay.
too big or exploded. So they've had to either split off or have been split off. Like some of them have over time had to jettison parts of their structure. So yeah, no, they're not. There's no one size fits all.
My craft world could beat up your dad. Which one's the biggest? Which one's the biggest?
Do you reckon that actually
Well, I
comes
don't know
up as like my craft world is bigger than yours? Shut up.
I think Bealtan was the biggest one, but I'm not sure.
It was Iandan and then Bealtan, and
Ah,
then it gets a little bit muddy. But yeah, so because they didn't, have warp travel, they would spend a long period of time, anyone on the craft worlds, without actually talking to anyone outside of the craft world. So they could see, they had a very unique view of things, and that they were the only ones who saw just how far gone the Eldar who just lived on the planets were really getting. And when things started getting really bad, Slaanesh was on the horizon. A lot of them realize they better just leave, because things are not looking very good right now. And so they started evacuating people. They started anything they could get from their homeworlds that could fit. Just started piling it on and getting the hell out of the Eldar core worlds, because it was not looking good. And the rule of thumb is that if a craft world exists, it got far enough away from the birth of Slaanesh. Sure enough, when that happened, we get the Eye of Terror, warp storms everywhere, things weren't great. And now the Eldar Empire is dead and gone. 99% of them went with it. Of course, not all of them quite managed to get out. I've said the ones we know of today did. I don't think they ever gave a specific number, but plenty of them that were built did not get out in time, so they got Slaaneshed, even though they didn't really do anything.
Getting Slaaneshed sounds like
They
the
were-
actual phrase of "I just got Slaaneshed." You can't even put yeesh. You can't put into
mean,
words quite what
I-
that would entail.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
they were-
help but I've been working my Fabius bar script, and I did a line that's something like, his experiments caused Slaanesh to salivate with the corruptions. Like, I couldn't help just be like, yeah, they like Fabius, even though he's like, gods are cringe. Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to be caught in Slaanesh's grip, but it's probably moist.
Slippery.
Oh,
True.
when they described the fall, though, like when I said it on a previous stream, like when Lorgar saw it, he described it like a rippling wave of demon flesh. So that's basically what it. And then your soul would just be instantly like yoinked, and then it was tortured and eaten. So that was.
Forever.
So I can imagine being in the inside of a shit. Was it? I think because it happened in the Eye of Terror, right? But I assume it's not.
Yeah,
like,
that was the.
like there's a certain radius where like it probably went further, because the Eye of Terror doesn't look like it's, you know what I mean, like a third of the size.
Yeah,
of the galaxy.
They were across the galaxy. I think that's one of those things they never set, like, a set line where it's like, yes, this many light years is the danger zone. Outside of that, you're good.
Just as a small question as well. I think other things got eaten as well, like things that just live near the Eldar, like other Xenos and things.
Yeah, if you were unfortunate to live near the Eldar Empire, you also got sucked into the Eye of Terror.
Just a
it was
few
just-
poor Jakero just being like, what's going on? Poor guys.
I'm just
Glock
building my
3000
monkey
into
stuff.
hell. Jesus.
Yeah,
They just
and
wanted
then,
to return to Monkey. And then it's just like, hello.
Hello, I'm Slaanesh. You look tasty. Yeah, so that was not great. The the major exceptions that didn't quite manage to get out, but we still know exist, was Ulthwé and Altansar. Altansar was just swallowed whole by the Eye of Terror. The only one who got out was Maugan Ra, a real one, for real. And Ulthwé half made it out. Kind of getting caught, and I think it's described as the gravity of the Eye of Terror, which I guess is interesting to know that it has gravity. But they couldn't get too far away, so they got to fight a lot of demons. And also, after the birth of Slaanesh, when Khaine got sharded, all those little shards that turned into the Avatar of Khaine landed across the craft worlds and drove everyone into a little bit of a murder frenzy. So even though they got away from Slaanesh, now Khaine is indirectly killing all of the Eldar again.
Oh, no.
Because his favorite hobby is to kill elves.
All that revenge for existing, am I right?
Yeah. How dare you?
As much as a shame as like Khaine does get like sort of ruined in lore. They kind of don't give him the treatment he deserves. He certainly, in a way, deserves a good slap, though. He's such a dick. he's such a dickhead.
He's awful. If it weren't for the fact that he always loses, no one would be asking for more Cade wins. It's just he's lost so many times.
Is he like the Nagash of? Maybe not as bad as Nagash.
No, because at least when Nagash loses, he's doing something cool, and he's otherwise going to blow up the world. Kane's just fighting 2 Space Marines and a squad of guardsmen, and he gets bodied.
All right then. Well, there's always I always find it weird that Kane and Khorne are quite similar. They have that warish fighting thing. So and it's really, really difficult to distinguish what makes them particularly different, other than one's a demon guy, one's an Eldar guy. They're both red. They're both like swords. They both cause their men to go mental and bloodthirsty frenzies. It's we've got Khorne at home, and it's Kane. Poor guy.
My way I look at it is that Kane is older. He's from the War in Heaven, not whenever Khorne popped into reality, and he doesn't quite corrupt you. He's not a chaos god, even though he is a warp god. So Kane's influence drive you a little bit crazy, a little bit nutty, but you're not going to grow tentacles out of your spine or any shit like that, like can happen with Khorne.
Isn't Kane more Khorne's more war and blood, and Kane's more murder? And...
Yeah, Kane's also just happy for you to murder someone in cold blood.
Even if
it
isn't
necessarily needed to be in war.
It doesn't need to be. It could be sneaky
just
as well.
Khorne without the honor, just stab him in the back. It's fine. It's good fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's fantasy lore, but there are human cults dedicated to Kane, and they're not warrior cults. They're just murderers. They're the Dark Brotherhood.
Oh God.
So
I can hear Cicero's voice in my ear. The night came.
I'm a jester. Oh, look at
I sleep in
I'm
his
so
corpse.
What would be worse, opening your door and finding Cicero in your room, or Meridia's beacon?
Meridia's beacon.
There was maybe they patched in that you could originally drop the beacon and she'd basically go, "What's wrong with you, scum?" But they got rid of that.
Of course they got rid of it, because that's all anyone did.
But you can never drop the beacon. But luckily it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
The worst thing is trying to find the beacon, though, because then if you're trying to look for it and get 2 dawn... Is it Dawnbreakers? You get 2 Dawnbreakers. I think, right?
I didn't know
you
that.
could get 2 of them.
Yeah.
I think you can get 2.
I mean, with Bethesda glitches, you can probably get a million of the things if you just duplicate them, right?
Just reminds me of playing Oblivion and then getting a bunch of arrows and doing the duplicate, just be wheels of cheese.
Oh, yeah.
Still love the necromantic one, though.
But yeah, after Slaanesh was born, most of the craft worlds just kind of focused on hiding and trying to survive, which, like you said, Hal, people who weren't Eldar were feeling the effects of Slaanesh's birth, and they're not inherently connected to her. So the Eldar were in a bit of a, a panic, a shutdown mode, which I don't blame them for. Just, for the most part, they just didn't want to be involved in anything. I mean, Orican felt Slaanesh's birth. He doesn't have a soul. So they were just kind of hiding. Some individuals were active. Eldrad makes a couple appearances in the Horus Heresy, so not, all of them collectively shut themselves in, but most of them did. That being said, early on in their history, 2 craft worlds were doing stuff. Biel-Tan and Iyanden. Iyanden did most of the actually productive stuff. Yeah, I have my favoritism. What about it?
Come on.
What do you want? I like my ghost robots. They're the army I collect for them. A spirit seer known as Melindri Silversoul, which elfest name I think I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it sounds like a bard from Baldur's Gate or something.
Yeah. Made the Infinity Circuits, which is how the Eldar keep their souls from Slaanesh's grip when they die. They go in the Soul Stone, they put their soul in that, and then they get plopped into Purgatory, which is better than Slaanesh. Iyanden did that, and then they shared it with everyone, and they said that, guys, we got this cool new invention, we can save our souls. Let's get back out there. Let's take back the Eldar Empire. And to that, almost every other craft world said, thank you for the free stuff. Good luck with it. Not the most supportive group of fellas. Except for Biel-Tan. Biel-Tan decided they were going to help. They wanted They really wanted the glory back because they're the Imperium, but with pointy ears. So they agreed to help Iyanden. And it went pretty well at first. Biel-Tan went throughout the eastern half of the galaxy. Iyanden took the western half. And they did a pretty good job at making sure chaos wasn't an issue for a few thousand years. Just keeping things clean. They would, frequently, webway gates connect all the craft worlds, so it's really just a short walk, no matter how far away they are. They would go on joint ventures. They'd let the other do their thing. Usually Biel-Tan would focus on, going out there doing the offense while Iyanden would rebuild and colonize. And it was good for a while, but over time, things would drift apart. Iyanden felt Biel-Tan was just a bit too focused on only reclaiming Maiden Worlds. Like, they couldn't even colonize yet. And perhaps just a little bit too much genocide for the Iyanden Eldar to be comfortable with. If you happen to live on a Maiden World, your life was now forfeit as far as Biel-Tan cared. And Biel-Tan, for their part, felt that Iyanden was letting the lesser races claim what was very rightfully theirs, since Maiden Worlds were Eldar worlds created millions of years ago, and in Biel-Tan's eyes, Iyanden was just letting them squat there on their property. And they just generally weren't committed enough, is what Biel-Tan felt. Over time, this led to them slowly drifting apart, which culminated in Iyanden basically unofficially cutting ties and just not responding to Biel-Tan whenever they asked for help anymore, which Biel-Tan took as a huge betrayal, and they were pretty mad about it, but they got over themselves and went about crusading as they did. And the rest of the craft worlds, began to take shape into what they would become. Saimhan had its Wild Riders, Ulthwé is the Seer faction, Alitok has its Rangers, Iyanden the Wraiths after getting obliterated by everyone in the galaxy ever. And Biel-Tan just, again, being... I don't want to call them particularly evil, because this is Warhammer, and not liking people that don't look like you is kind of the standard assumption.
They're like the Black Templars of the Eldar.
Yeah, that's a good.
It's on the edge of, like, if it was by our modern standards, it's like yikes.
Yeah, that's Biel-Tan. As a general rule of thumb across the craft worlds, they will be ruled by their Seer Council. They read fate, look through the webs of all the different possibilities. Like, I was once at Doctor Strange from Infinity War, just looking at all the timelines, doing their best, although not quite as good as him, unfortunately. And they try and guide their craft world on a path best suited just to victory, but oftentimes just survival. This is my line where I cope about the Eldar losing all the time. Although it seems many times as if the Eldar are defeated, it's often that the defeat now will result in fewer lives lost than later, which means the greatest Eldar victory is this. I think this is even something that, like, if you look at like Farseer lore, the greatest Eldar victory is one you will never know happened because it technically didn't.
That is the most Tzeentch of all responses.
That's such a cop-out.
Yeah.
It's such a cop-out.
But hey, there are
failed
we win so
successfully.
good, you don't even know we've won. It's like it's like the
There
school
are-
playground thing. Oh no,
there are
actually I
some-
win.
There are some examples, like Eldrad early on. It looked like all he did was lose a battle against orcs that was just pretty awful. But it prevented the craft worlds from going to war against each other and blowing each other all up. So, hey, it does work. Still results in dead elves, which I'm not a fan of, but, it is what it is.
Andy's now smiling.
Uh,
Dead elves.
They usually go into the Spirit Stones, though, so I mean, it's
They
a lot
do,
of
so,
recycling.
not always, though. Sometimes that don't happen. They do end the last, the general thing. Oh, two last general things. Their military is the Aspect Warriors, but as a result of them being a dying race, not always a lot of Aspect Warriors to go around. In fact, if you're not Biel-Tan, you probably don't have as many Aspect Warriors as you would like. They also don't, but that's not really for supply reasons. That's just because they want more people to murder with. So their military will be equal parts militia. They're called the like Guardian Defenders, stuff like that on the tabletop. They're just non-warrior path Eldar who get grabbed up, are given a temporary war mask to block the horrors of war out, and are told to go shoot whatever is bothering the Eldar today. Those will make up a lot of the military. Last thing before I go on a bit is just that whole path system thing. So why did Slaanesh happen? It's because the Eldar experience emotions far stronger than any other being, and their psychic power means that has a lot of an echo in the warp, which, when they started getting real degenerate, led to Slaanesh. So the Phoenix Lords, the demigods, a good word, I would think, like modern day Eldar demigods, created the path system, which is basically, let's say, the big ones are obviously, the Path of the Warrior, like Dire Avenger, Warp Spider, but there will be like paths for everything. Path of the Botanist, Path of the McDonald's Fry Cook, anything you can think of.
Path of Exile.
Path of the Exile.
Yeah, Path of the Exile.
Me too.
That one's a book, man. How'd I miss that? Although, to be fair, Path of the Exile is kind of just going, I don't want to deal with the path system, so it's a bit weird.
Path of the Lore Master.
Having
a skill that you cannot use in any other job.
Path of the Deep Fat Fryer to keep everyone fed.
Yeah.
Path of the laying in bed all day and not doing anything.
It's basically they're going to lock themselves into one path and just focus the hell on that to a ridiculously disciplined degree, so they don't have to worry about any like temptations or stray thoughts or anything catching them off guard. They focus all of their effort on the one thing they're all about. It's not necessarily always, like boring discipline warrior stuff, like, Path of the Musician or something. They do have fulfilling non-murder people jobs. It's just that, you're in the path of the electric guitarist. You are only going to be playing the electric guitar for about 1,000 years.
Don't even look at an acoustic.
Yeah.
The noise reaches that
on
going,
your case.
amateur.
Yeah, and you can switch, like part of the path of the command is that you've walked other warrior paths, so you know the experience of several. It's just that while they're on that path, you're off it. Which I've seen some people online say that sounds like they just fall to Slaanesh again because it's all about perfection. But the thing about the path system is that the end goal isn't mastering that skill. It's just a natural result of doing the same thing over and over again,
Just
day
discipline.
in, day out for forever. Yeah. It'd be like, even if I go back to the guitar, I don't really have too much of an interest in learning the guitar. But if I did that for the next 10 years of my life and only worked on mastering the guitar, I'd probably be pretty decent at playing it.
Do each parts of the craft world have are they all split into these different sections or different paths? Do you know that?
So at least the warrior paths do have their own shrines on the craft worlds. So those paths I know have their own little sections off of the in the craft worlds. I'm not as sure about other ones. The path of the village drunk probably doesn't need a shrine.
Everywhere's a shrine where you get drink.
You got a good point. The whole craft world's the shrine.
Where's the Guinness, brother?
But overall, that's one of those things where I can't even say that's an Eldar thing. It's a Warhammer lore aspect that isn't about the war, so it's a little underdeveloped.
Thank you, Jake Thornton, for Path of the VTuber. I thought about
there it
same
is.
thing. Yeah, Path of
Yeah.
the VTuber.
Path of the Blood Raven. Come on.
You're just a thief.
What if we did an episode where we all had avatars instead of they moved? It's VTuber avatars.
That'd be something.
Call those the quizzes, Hal.
I mean, no, but it's it actually moved along with us.
Oh, those
a
things,
proper one.
from what I've heard about, and I've talking to some, those things are complicated as hell.
Mm.
Although, I mean, either way, you need to pay to get the rigging up. So
nope, it's not happening.
yeah, I'm good. I'm not that dedicated to the bit.
We've already got our faces out there. This is the most amount of motion anyone's going to get.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No amount of anime avatar is going to sound like I have any emotion in my voice. I don't know what to tell you on that one, fellas.
You have a great voice. What are you talking about?
Oh, I'm a fan. It's just trying to
Emote.
imply I'm feeling any sort of emotion at any given moment. A little bit hard.
I am excited.
I
Literally
am
Just like Captain Holt from
Quaking.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I am
in my
ecstatic.
boots.
actually getting excited. There's a Mandalore video where it's got something like that, a bit like that.
Yeah, all of us, when we first started out, I'm pretty sure all of our voices were like, oh, did anyone here like ever heard their first video again recently?
Yeah, you know I am.
God,
Oh,
my
yeah.
first
yeah.
Agony.
my first
Well,
video is so bad. I can't even actually physically. I feel a physical wound when I listen to my voice is like
It created a tear in the
Eldar.
warp. The emotions you felt.
I make a joke about sounding like, very neutral. Dude, my first few videos, better than what I was doing at first, it sounded like I was 2 steps away from putting a gun to my head. I sounded horribly depressed. Which I guess, to be fair, I started doing that when I was student teaching. So that was,
Yeah.
Jeez.
mine
It was
did.
bleeding
Mine sounded
through and I
like
didn't catch
I
it.
was under threat. Like it was like I was reading off of a hostage note. So
I mean, mine has gone lower as time has gone. I've gone from like, "Hello everyone, I'm doing it," and I'm like, "I'm talking about the 41st millennium." It's like, oh, you can see the trend of just trying to get lower and lower and lower, and shredding my voice a bit.
Yeah, that's the general across the board Eldar things. Like I was saying, Bieltan and Iandon kind of focused on it for now because they were leading the show for a bit on a craft world level. All the others were kind of just doing their thing, doing their best to not get devoured by either Slaanesh or a galaxy full of things that hate them. Bieltan and Iandon early on were going off, but with that, we'll get to the specifics. We're gonna start with Iandon, and then Eli, I'll throw it your way a bit for some Bieltan. But Iandon, I'm doing it. I do my favorite first. It was once the most populous craft world by a pretty fair margin.
then they got
Once,
past tense.
twice, 3 times across the world.
And then it very abruptly wasn't.
Aw.
Bit of a goof.
they're-
Whoops.
Probably the closest to good Eldar, like how a lot of factions are in 40k, because their whole thing was like they focused on cleaning the galaxy of like chaos and all that bad stuff, and they did a pretty good job of it. Their sections of the galaxy for thousands of years basically had no chaos taint in them. Said they were the largest craft world, so they could levy a lot of forces. They had the support of Bieltan early on, and even when they lost that, they were still the largest craft world. They were pretty good at what they did. And then if you played Halo Wars, setback after setback, loss after loss, things were no longer going in Iandon's favor. And then I'm going to be honest, most of what I have written for them is just getting their ass kicked. First, there was that whole, dissolution of the alliance with Bieltan. Then, Prince Uriel makes his appearance and starts leading them into some pretty glorious wars. Not many casualties, he's doing pretty good. And then, because his arrogance gets the best of him, an otherwise hugely successful war against a Chaos Space Marine warband, like they were getting obliterated, results in a last-minute tragedy where a little thing known as a cyclonic torpedo hits Iandon, and whole chunks of it are destroyed. Everyone, obviously, in those sections is obliterated, and so are their soul stones.
Wow.
So they went right to Slaanesh.
Feels bad.
I can just imagine some poor sod fighting on the front line, saying, "Yeah, we're winning," and then it's just like, "Huh? Oh no!" And just seeing it slowly moving, and then just
Lord
"Oh,
Farsi, a second cyclonic torpedo. The craft
oh
world.
no!"
Wow, that entire section got sauteed and served into a starter meal.
It was
Our craft world is now puree. Oh no!
was not great. Obviously, a craft world is very big. Like it is the size of a planet, so you need a couple of them to put them out of commission. But you don't want them to hit. Like one cyclonic torpedo was one too many. So they're kind of recovering from that mess. Then High Fleet Kraken shows up. Half of it, the other half going to fight the Ultramarines, of course, the greatest of us all. The other half went towards the Eldar, and while it's basically like the big come together moment where everyone, like all the Eldar craft worlds, start sending troops to help Iandon out because Tyranids are a problem for everyone, not
Did they
just
not
Iandon.
run away? As in, like that wasn't a possibility.
They thought
Craft
they would
worlds, are one, they were arrogant and thought they were that guy just straight up. Like Eldred warned them, like, no, you don't want this. You don't want any of this smoke. You want to get out of here.
My pronouns are not they and that because I'm him. I'm
Yeah.
always him. Like,
Yeah.
they weren't him.
No, they were. Iandon was not him.
That one time.
Eldrad just kind of shrugged his shoulders, like, "All right, well, good luck with that, guys. Have fun." And yeah, despite early on their fleet held off the Tyranids, as you know with the Tyranids, there is always more Tyranids. 8 4/5 of the remaining craft world.
Yikes.
Tough.
Not great. In some ways, not as bad as like the cyclonic torpedo thing, because the Tyranids usually don't care too much about soul stones. They just want the biomass. So
They probably ate the soul stones as well, to be fair.
yeah, but you could dig that out of their guts.
They probably got digested.
Let us have this.
Let me live in my delusion. It doesn't hurt you to let me pretend that the
But
soul
am I
stones-
wrong, though? Am I wrong?
All it specifically says is that a lot of Eldar got eaten. So I
Not-
choose
not
to believe that
digested.
soul stones
So
There's a
were-
lot
your
of, there's a
whole
lot of
mouth.
ghosts now.
Look,
so-
the digesting happens in the digestion pools after the fact. The Tyranids don't eat you on the
True.
spot.
Yeah.
True.
So no, they were not eaten.
I don't know. I feel like it would be like a gallstone or something if a Tyranid eats. Like oh, it's not very comfortable. It's not going down easy. It hurts.
You do not want to get the soul gem kidney stone.
Exactly. Yeah, pushing one of those out is not a fun time.
Literal rock.
This black
Yeah.
soul gem.
Oh.
got me
And then there's
acting
just
up.
like you can just hear someone on the inside just like, let me out, let me out. You're like, oh, what's that?
Would
That's
you
weird.
rather have a black soul gem or a greater soul gem? You know, the one that's a bit more spiky.
Hmm.
You mean the grand soul
Skyrim?
gem?
Because the
Yeah,
grand
sorry, the
ones are
grand
bigger,
one.
aren't they?
I think the grand is the one that you can also put people in.
But I feel like the grand one is smoother, even though it's larger.
I think the
So-
black soul gem is the smooth one, isn't it?
Well, they're kind of like
I
smaller,
don't
but I
It's
think
a
they're
deep
more
purple
jagged.
I know
colour.
black soul gems, you can put anything in them, so they're more versatile.
Yeah.
Or you could put the
like Eldar
Azura
Souls.
Star. Yo, digesting the Azura Star must be
I
impossible.
don't want to eat any Daedric
okay.
artifact.
I
That's
don't
like
know-
up there with eating.
I don't know why,
raw
but now,
nuts.
now you've
What's the
now
staff
you've been-
called? Of Sheer Gorath. Jigalag? No.
The
No,
Wabbajack?
that's,
Wabbajack.
yeah,
God.
that's
Wabbajack.
Yeah,
God, get a
Jigalag is the-
Wabbajack.
It's the
Wabbajack.
Wabbajack. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know why. They're just the
I'm
idea
not
of
deep throating the
soul-
Wabbajack.
But for
It's
some
very
reason, you just
upsetting.
made me think of a poor surgeon in Skyrim just being like, "Why have you been putting the soul gems up there? God, have you got nothing to do on a
Storage.
Saturday night? That's a bad idea." They're
It
not a
annoys you that the
suppository.
Wabbajack doesn't work on not who's the dragon? Not Akatosh.
Alduin.
Alduin. Why doesn't the Wabbajack work on Alduin? They ruined that because
Well,
surely
'cause-
can't turn him into turning into a chicken would be so cool.
Well, lore-wise, it's because he
Angry
eats
chicken.
the world, and he's the reason Maroon's Dagon's an evil thing. So Sheogorath's hand-me-downs aren't going to do anything to him. Gameplay-wise, it's because turning the final boss into a sweet roll is a little bit anticlimactic.
I mean, can't even use it on General Tullius or. I mean, it's just such a waste. Wasted opportunity.
You just turn him into a chicken, and he just comes up and is like, "We can share a strawberry tart." You're like, "I love you. You're the best Daedric elf. I love you."
Ugh,
So sidetracked. Sorry.
I am not coping with the Elder. I'm not coping. Chat.
Small question: is the Anton the one where like they interacted with humans?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
they. Yeah, that was. I was going to get to that once I
I
was.
just,
done with
I
the-
just make sure I not go into it before we.
Oh yeah, no worry.
So this is the bad,
Yeah.
the ugly, and then there'll be the good next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in some ways, not as bad because the soul stones were mostly intact. In others, far
You
worse
say so.
because there was only 20% of the living left, and they were forced to put those soul stones into wraith constructs for their campaigns, which is the ghost robots I love so much. Cool models, very good. But it's like a step above grave robbing and necromancy as far as the Eldar are concerned. Like the Infinity Circuit's whole thing is you've done your part. You can finally rest from this hellhole of a galaxy. And then you rip them back out and tell them to go to war is basically what it is. So, but they just do not have the people to do anything else other than throw wraiths at anything that bothers them. Which, to be fair, throw Wraithguard in anything, it'll probably swiftly resolve itself. They're quite strong. As for nowadays, with the Great Rift, they were under attack by Nurgle forces. Prince Uriel died and I'm pretty sure he was encased in snot.
What?
Yeah, Nurgle lore, I don't know, man. It's gross. Thankfully, all those ghost robots meant that they wouldn't really get infected, because even if they did, they're made out of Wraithbone, which is magical, conjured up material, so nothing really for Nurgle to infect. So they decontaminated him, and then the Ynnari brought him back to life. And speaking of the Ynnari, Iyanden is like neutral in a way on the Ynnari, like tentatively supporting them. Although unlike a lot of the other craft worlds, it's not that they dislike the Ynnari's whole thing. It's that they're already made of mostly of the dead. And if all of the dead go to join the god of the dead, they will no longer have enough craft world to make up a craft world. Let alone like the few remaining living amongst the craft world. If they all leave, then they're just going to die out.
So ungrateful. Right after Ben Solo transferred his life essence into Rey and brought him back. I mean Prince Uriel.
That's the great Uno reverse card of the century.
Yeah.
It really is the rise of the Skywalker. No, I'm joking. That's an unfair comparison. Sorry.
But no, in spite of reality teabagging them all of the time, they're actually reasonably hopeful folk. They like to think these trials are them. They've come through all of them on top, even if pretty severely beaten. They're always looking to the galaxy with a little bit of hope. Not a lot. This is 40k, but a little bit. And they're some of the only Eldar to really have proper colonies, not just either sitting on a maiden world or cleaning up a maiden world of people who live on it and then leaving. They actually we're not gonna rebuild this empire if we don't get some people on the ground. So they do that, and like you were saying, how they're very diplomatic. They would regularly at one point just have inquisitors housed by their families on Iyanden, and I believe I brought this up before on the podcast.
The Eldar Witness Protection Programs, just the Inquisition going like, we will make sure, we'll give you a new identity. And it's like, let's put this hat on. They won't know about your ears. We'll just say you have a weird diet that makes you really lean.
Yeah. It's but yeah, they would just like an Inquisitor would just live in Iyanden for a bit. Like I said, I brought it up. The Last Chancers Regiment, one of their members was in it because he just took an Eldar vehicle from Iyanden for a joyride. Like they were on a diplomatic trip, which implies a couple of things. Like for one, it's a regular and publicized enough occurrence that some random schmuck could just wander into an Eldar diplomatic meeting or while they're doing things and just steal the dude's car.
It's like a UN meeting for like world peace, and all of a sudden there's just a guy doing donuts in the front, just like,
That's basically what it was.
What's going on?
But also that clearly there was enough level of trust that again, some random schmuck wasn't instantly gunned down by 500 aspect warriors guarding the diplomat, that he could get to the point where he could just steal a car. So Iyanden, they seem to make friends, and it usually pays off because the only reason they made it out of Hive Fleet Kraken alive was because, like I said, pretty much every craft world sent them some measure of reinforcements. So yeah, they're diplomats, stoic. In fact, they even get bonuses on the tabletop, like to kind of reinforce their just stoic resolve in the face of everything. Very, very cool dudes. Collect Iyanden, buy Wraith units. Painting yellow isn't that bad.
Why is the slander?
I just mean
Why wouldn't they want a cyclonic torpedo if they painted their craft world bright yellow? Like, it's just asking for it.
This reminds me of like, people who are like
just in the
Imperial
void of
Fist
space.
fans and Iyanden fans just like clasping together, just, like painting yellow.
Yellow's not that bad.
Rip Carl Withers.
It's really not that bad.
You just need contrast paints, honestly.
White is the real misery paint. White is hell.
It really is.
You have to get airbrush brothers, and it's no problem.
Yeah, I'll be doing my mentors soon, hopefully. So
Ooh.
I might get an airbrush.
Upgrade your gear. You can get an airbrush on Amazon for like 70 quid.
There's so many paints
Everything
back
in
there,
it.
though. I need to use them.
You can still use them in the airbrush. You just like plop it in.
Yeah,
and
you
water
have
it down.
dilute. You just dilute them down.
Oh, shit! I didn't know.
Yeah, it's
Don't
really
need,
nice.
don't need new paints.
It's kind of a pain to clean because you have to clean it every time you want to change color. But
Yeah,
it's still nice. It's really good.
I mean, you kind of need to do that with a brush too. That's just dip, dip, dip.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's basics of Ayandon. I'll probably ask this after every craft world. Any questions, any queries about good old Ayandon?
I have one which is about how it's their color scheme, just in general, of Eldar craft worlds. Why is
Yes.
it so bright? It's so bright.
Because it looks cool. I don't know why is Space Marine armor so bright? Look at the Alpha Legion. Look at the Thousand Suns.
Oh,
No, but I think back to like even in the early editions when they were doing all the artwork, like even
All right.
then, like the
All
grimdark
of 40k
stuff.
was bright at that point.
Yeah.
No, but even the
Yeah,
like the
that giant white, yellow titan. Just like, hello guys.
the
Like,
Eldar
yeah,
seem
that
to
thing's quite
avoid the
garish.
grimdark aesthetic though, quite heavily. They're almost like.
I mean, in some regards, they precede the grimdark to an extent. I mean, yes, there's the war in heaven, but then there was like a long period of just like, we're having fun. Oh no!
as much
we
as I hate
found
to,
drugs!
this would be a weird thing to bring up. Was it Dawn of War? Dawn of War 3 trailer. Do you know the Howling Banshees and that? And they made, or even
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
The
they're
death
like
of- yeah, like the guy who did the Death of Hope animation, and he put a
Yeah.
there's a Howling Banshee in there, and that one looks like ancient bone and stuff. I thought like, oh man, like it looks like ancient bone armor,
Mhm.
and I always thought that'd be way cooler for the general aesthetic of the Eldar, where it's like it literally looks like ancient armor rather than Power Rangers go go go.
Personally, I love the Go-Go Power
Me
Rangers
too.
armor.
Me
Yeah.
I do
too.
have a question, not about this particular, but is it Samhain that has the bright red and they go fast?
Yes.
Yeah, baby.
Is that where the orcs get it from?
It
They're like
might.
red ones go faster because of them. That would
I
make
don't
sense,
know.
surely.
I don't think they've ever confirmed it, but orc culture is stealing things from other cultures. No reason that they
So
didn't
like
look
the
at
British. sorry.
no reason.
I'm
you
allowed to
can't,
say that. I'm allowed to say
imagine-
that.
Yeah, we love tea so much, even though we stole it from China. Like, yeah, it's our thing now. It's like, hang on a minute.
Yeah. No reason. You can't assume that's where the orcs got it from. Simon goes quite fast.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Is
I
there
feel like them
any
getting
purple
clapped in the war in
ones?
heaven. They're like, they're quite fast. That
I
means red
believe
ones
there's
are fast.
there's purple ones. I think my Mira's like aqua. What's the
Just-
purple one?
I just wanted to have the
Oh.
stealthy ones, then the
There's-
orcs really
there's
did
like-
steal it.
I think
There's like-
Altan Sar. Yeah, Altan Sar is like
Ah.
maroon purple.
Hmm.
There's like
They've
maybe
just-
10 side craft worlds, and yet they all have less lore than like 300 successor chapters. But whatever.
They have less lore than the successor chapter that has no chapter badge and one paragraph. It's like,
Yeah, literally.
less than that.
The average Eldar craft world has less lore than the fucking Genesis chapter.
Oh, pain.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's my like just general question about. I don't have anything specific to Iandon though, because I think
Yeah.
I do wish they get more Prince Uriel stuff, just because he seems.
I wish
I
he
love
gets a
that guy.
bottle
Corsair
or a
thing
new
is cool.
one.
He's so cool.
Make him plastic. It smells not that bad, but it's resin.
Oh, pain.
Ugh.
No,
but
that's my question. That's all good.
all right. With that, Bieltan, Eli, you wanna do some
Yeah, baby.
some Bieltan lore? I feel like you've been waiting for it. Take it away.
Yeah, Bieltan's probably my favorite. Them or same hand, but Bieltan's pretty awesome. You know the Navy SEALs copy pasta? Do you Andy and Hal? Do you know that?
Oh
wow,
I've heard
I
it
don't
referenced.
think
I
so.
don't think.
All
I
right.
know
Well,
exactly
I'll send
what
it in the. I'll throw it in the
So-
Discord, and I can.
somebody
Should I brace
guarantee-
myself?
Oh Lord above.
It's the.
Is
Let's
this-
see if I can even find it.
I found
I
it.
might be
Oh.
able to share it on the stream as well if I can see it.
I'm just gonna put that in general, anyways. I enjoy reading.
Yeah. This one for Chad. It's the. I'll have
Oh,
you know, I
yeah.
graduated top of my class in Navy SEAls, and I've been involved in numerous secret raids in Al Qaeda,
Oh, no.
et cetera, et cetera. Bieltan is
yeah.
essentially the Navy SEALs copy pasta guy, except every word in the copy pasta is actually true. And it's if you gave like the I don't know what it would be like the European equivalent, but like the reserves kid, the ROTC kid in school who posts like return to tradition edits. If you gave that guy 500 years of military training and sci-fi guns, and then had him read Industrial Society and its future, and that's your average dude from Bealtan, pretty much.
Wow.
So, if you they're the kind of guys who would get in an argument with the Imperials on who's more racist, and they would vehemently try to win that one. So,
So you're telling me these are like in shape Redditors?
maybe like the opposite of your average Redditor. Maybe like in shape 4chaners, I guess.
Let me put it this way. Like the Death Watch and their rabid hatred of Xenos comes from intense levels of indoctrination and brainwashing to get them to just despise Xenos.
Yeah.
That is the default state of Bealtan. The least racist member of Bealtan.
So yeah, if you're a Xenos hater, then you'll probably appreciate Bealtan. They kind of remind me of the Necrons. They have a similar kind of goal as the Necrons, as well, as they want to, see the extinction and eradication of every other species in the galaxy that isn't the Eldar, essentially. Their whole thing is they want to return to the glory days of the Eldar, and they're very optimistic people, so they've been staging a lot of like assaults and retaking of Maiden Worlds, and they think the Maiden Worlds will be the staging point for the return of the Eldar, which they think is going to happen any day now, guys. It'll happen any day, I swear. We'll stop losing any day now. So they're working really hard. They're all about military and tradition, so naturally they have the most aspect warriors out of anyone else, as it's actually a coming-of-age ritual to walk the path of the warrior. They also have the most exarchs, and the exarchs, because most craft worlds, the Seer Council is the highest place in government, but for Bealtan, it's also shared with the Council of Exarchs called the Court of the Young King, who they generally elect a young king who will then be sacrificed, of course, to summon the Avatar of Cain. So if you like the Avatar of Cain on the tabletop, Bealtan's not a bad way to go. Let's see. Like we said, they worked with Yanin after the fall, and they wrecked some chaos, but then they stopped being friends, sadly. They have definitely the coolest armies with the most fancy tech of all the Eldar for the most part. Their whole thing is the Sword Wind, which is Bazakane, I believe is how you pronounce it. The whole idea is like one swift strike, complete and utter obliteration in like the blink of an eye type of thing. So they have lots of wave serpents and falcons, and they just zoom up and they kill you pretty much. They're in 9th edition. Their like tabletop rules was, I think, you got to reroll a wound, and you would battle focus on a 3 or more. You could never roll a 1 or a 2, so that was nice. They're just fast guys. One of the cooler things in their armory, one of the engines of Vol, so super heavies, is a monofilament like giant cannon tank thing, and the cannon has bacteria and wraithbone parasites in it that will just eat and destroy anything it touches. Basically, they use it to cleanse the worlds, but all the other Eldar kind of hate them for that, because it was originally made to like more like terraform and do nice things and make life, but they're using it to destroy life. So,
it's also a walking war cry.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But to be fair, real good at getting rid of orcs and Tyranids, all those
Yeah.
spores.
Yeah.
Hard to have a Geneva Convention when Geneva was wiped off the map
Yeah.
in their sort of life.
Andy's leaving on his favorite Eldar. How could he do such a thing? It's all right.
Favorite Eldar? That's a good one.
Andy's favorite Eldar is a dead one.
Yeah, fair.
Exactly.
The only good Eldar.
Oh, the void
Never
spinner. That's
crawls
what
out
it's
of their
called, yeah.
stinking craft world.
We don't like your kind around here, boy.
What was it again? Oh yeah, speaking of Andy, I guess the Imperium doesn't like the Bealtan, obviously, but at the same time, Bealtan does just as good of a job as killing all the other Xenos races as they do killing humans. So it's like they're kind of useful, even though they are kind of scary at the same time. If you're a colony on a maiden world, and it doesn't matter, maybe you've lived there for like 20,000 years, but Bealtan sees that as the blink of an eye, obviously, and they're going to wipe you off the face of the planet. Every man, woman, and child, of course, because you're a human being, you're freaking inferior vermin to them. So get out of here.
They do make the offer to take people away, but
It's not legit.
I don't think they're gonna. No, they will do it, But I don't think they're going to be heartbroken if you say no. Then they're going to
Yeah.
go, all right, we were hoping you would say
Yeah, very much.
Rolls up sleeves.
They have allied with Imperials from time to times, especially to fight like orcs, because they hate orcs more than all the other Xenos, which I think is kind of a feeling shared by most people who hate everyone in the galaxy. But oftentimes they'll fight beside you, and then once the orcs are dead, they'll turn around and just kill you afterwards as well. But I know,
things of hell.
yeah, I know that there was a time. At least I haven't read the book, but I hear about it everywhere. Is that they allied with some Talon Desert Raiders once, I think, and
Yeah,
it was actually
there-
went well.
There was something with like a chaos artifact on Talarn that they saw that Talarn, they helped him secure it, and Talarn's pretty good at keeping Talarn chaos free, as evidenced by them clowning on the Iron Warriors. Common Perturabo L, absolutely amazing. They're like, yeah, you guys, we're gonna lock this in a box for you, keep it safe, and the Desert Raiders are like, we'll do.
Hey Eli, if your wife became a Bealtown Eldar warrior, what would I do? I don't know, bro. What? What would I do?
He'd be dead.
You'd get genocided.
That'd be nice. That'd be pretty cool. But what was
She'd
I
look
even
down at
talking
him
about?
because it's just like 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, they do take the occasional W though. I think out of all the Eldar, Bealtan takes a lot of dubs, which is nice. It's something. They have their little it's like a Hall of Heroes type of place where they categorize all of the spirit stones of people who died in battle, and they categorize them by what battle they died in, and they often go to those guys for advice on stuff. Kind of neat. Let me see. They are what?
Oh, I would say there was like I don't remember what it's from, but like they beat 10 Space Marine chapters and like 2 whole Segmentum fleets once.
Yeah, very nice.
Hell yeah.
There is a little story where they outsmart the Raven Guard and kill all of them too, which is pretty cool. So they of all the, if you want Eldar that don't lose all the time, then
that win.
then yeah, Bealtan's pretty good. I think. I mean, the other guys, yeah, they're not mentioned enough to win enough, I guess. Like Elatok just got bodied in lore last I checked, so well, whatever. They
Oh,
are
great point though. With that, is anyone ever sad when a Raven Guard dies?
no.
Yeah, I just realized I never ever felt sad about a Raven Guard dying.
You just hear people going, "Caw-caw." They're in the background.
The real
Nevermore.
question, Hal, is if a tree is around in the forest, or if a tree falls in the forest
Yeah.
and no one's around to hear it.
Yeah.
Does
exactly.
anyone write a Raven Guard book?
If there's a book that's been written and no one's allowed to read it, does it exist? No.
I just couldn't see any Space Marines in the entire book. It's just
Wow, the Raven Guard are so good at hiding, I can't even find their lore. Where is it?
Poor guys. They're still Space Marines though, so they still take more dubs than
Yeah.
the average
And
fully
Cave on
fleshed.
Strike is pretty
Raven Guard do
Built
clown on
in,
Tau. They get
Yeah,
clowned
they
on
did.
by Tau.
Yeah.
Couple of
Good.
times.
Yeah.
For the greater good.
Well, but back in the day, and still nowadays, but not so much because they got blown up. But they would follow this kind of like Warden's path throughout the galaxy, and they would retake Maiden Worlds and cleanse the places of all the vermin, so that for the Rise of the Eldar, they were kind of like Anarchy of the Traveler types. He goes around and goes to Tomb Worlds and gets rid of all the colonists and reawakens his people and stuff. They're very, very similar to that, in my opinion. During the 13th Black Crusade, or at least around it, the Battle of Bealtan occurred. Scarbrand punched a hole in the webway, or not the webway, like the warp or whatever, and the mask jumped out. And she went into the center of Bealtan somehow. I didn't read the freaking supplement codex or whatever back then.
I'm pretty sure it's part of the Yunari book, so.
Yeah. Also, I'm. You couldn't pay me enough to read those things, so sorry. But the mask went into the world, and she corrupted the spirit circuit with Slanesh demons, which is like the most horrific thing you could imagine if you're the poor spirits in there. So the defenses in the Wraithbone were very hard pressed and kind of already breaking. But then the Yunari showed up with Yvraine. Yvraine kind of helped them out. She went to the World Spirit Center, took out the Crone Sword, and summoned the Incarn, which then was too much for Biel-Tan to handle, and it got blown into a bunch of pieces. But it didn't kill them all, which is nice. They took a long time to regrow, obviously, but of all the craft worlds, they're the most optimistic, and they still took the victory for what it was, and they kind of unified quickly and got back at it. So their craft world is more like a fleet now than an actual craft world. It's just a bunch of pieces flying together.
When Ynnari did that, didn't they consume a huge amount of the Infinity Circuits, like undead?
Yes, that also happened.
So they were probably like, "Thank you for saving us. You ate my grandmother, my grandfather, my mum,
Yeah,
and you turned my mum into a weapon."
and you would have got Dad too, but Slanesh got him first.
yeah, seriously.
That's a great sentence, Hal. You turned my mum into a weapon.
I mean, literally.
Oh, so yeah, she said, "Here, I'll save you," and then blew up the craft world. But she did save them in the end, I guess. So whatever, it worked.
Yeah.
It
That's
works.
the Mask of Slanesh, I think, just for clarification, right? The demon.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
showed up
yeah.
and goofed on them a little bit. It was when the Mask and Scarbrand were fighting together. This was like, I don't want to admit this, but this was like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. I'm pretty sure that this lore came out. I mean,
During the time of the rise of Gilliman, isn't it?
Oh, no.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
Yep.
because the Ynnari was going on at the same time.
That is somehow almost old lore at this point, which is insane.
Gilliman's been back for a hot minute, guys. He's been back.
Yeah,
for a
I know.
Yeah.
I haven't even. I must be like 20 years behind at this point because I haven't even gotten to those books at this point. in time.
7 years. Gilliman's been back in the Imperium.
That's insane.
So I must
So
admit,
back
the
in
most
real life.
I feel like the book series that gets most brushed over is the Psychic Awakening stuff. I was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that exists.
Yeah,
You can't because you can't buy
Seriously.
the books. They're not actual books. They're a supplement.
Well,
codex
yeah,
thing.
yeah. But the
Well,
lore is
even
just
beyond
like,
that,
some
all
really
the
cool
events,
stuff, but,
like usually Codex events still are worth something, but like the Psychic Awakening, I feel like the reaction everyone had to that was, that sure was a thing.
yeah.
They did it
Because
too
it-
quickly, I think. Though I think they had they've made a Fall of Cadia book now,
yeah.
like an actual Fall of Cadia book, and everyone said it was
Mm.
really, really good. But then there's still no how did I think people often compare like, how did the Primarch come back? Oh, he's in this supplement thing that you can't buy anymore. The Gathering Storm.
Oh yeah.
You can't
When-
buy it.
When did the Psychic Awakening happen again? Was that like 2019, 2020?
2017, I think.
27, yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, well, in that case, the previous major event they did in their settings was the end times.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I
They
guess
were probably
so.
a little
Yeah.
bit cautious with that.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Fair. Holy cow.
Your
Yeah. And that's
previous
really
setting
like
shaking
interesting
event.
ideas.
Oh,
It's just there's no
man.
good platform for the whole. Like there's a bunch of interesting like coinciding stories. It's like the Great Rift, all the Psych and the Eldar. Like more Psychers. That's weird. Many books. Not really.
The lore where Belisarius Call meets Trazen is in the Gathering
Hmm.
Storm supplement. Again, you can't buy it. I
And
managed to
there's the War
find
of
a
the
copy of
Spider.
it from like someone I knew. So like I would get that excerpt when I did like a old Trazen and Orokin video. But I was like, how the hell is anyone going to find the other than the game, the actual like Battlefield Gothic game? There's no like actual way to find the interaction.
I was
between
and with that
the
one,
two
you didn't
characters.
even need to buy the supplement in the first place. You could just watch the cutscene from Battlefield Gothic.
yeah.
And some of Battlefleet Gothic isn't canon because Spire kills Abaddon. You're like, oh my!
It's canon in my heart.
I mean, thank God that game
It's
exists
great.
just for the cutscenes, though.
hmm
But the
Yeah,
whole
that
game
was-
is good in that.
That was that was Valrak's like claim to fame, just reposting the cutscenes pretty much, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like the most viewed videos are just the cutscenes.
That's funny. DJ Beast said, Eli, what would you do if your wife was a Wraith Knight? Which I think is a pretty funny
The thing since the thing
comment.
going on.
The
I love you anyway.
knight-sized Titan construct.
Climb on in.
Yep.
Pilot
that-
seat.
Well, unfortunately, DJ Beast, unless his wife has a twin, she can't be a Wraith Knight.
Oh yeah,
Aw.
true. Oh, we have a donation from Incoming Backup, a classic fella. Thank you. I am returned once more from the army to remind thee of the existence of Boingob. May he forever remain crispy and delicious. Also, you guys rock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
brother.
you.
Thank you.
He would be a
Praise
pretty
God.
delicious roast when
Praise
you be.
Boy
The real question is, if Boingob could consume a craft world, which one? Like, how big
All of
is
them.
his gob?
Yeah, true.
Such is his might.
I
The
just
might
want a
of
new
Boing Gob,
orc
the father of
warband.
all squigs, for people who don't
Oh,
understand.
I just want a new
I-
orc warband that praises Boing
Mm.
Gob and has all their iconography about him and rides squigs into battle. That's all I want.
That'll be on our merchandise when we get around to it.
Sure.
I
That'd be
read
awesome.
some leaks. That's how they're gonna, when the Emperor finally dies on the Golden Throne, that's how they're gonna plug the demon hole. Make
Replace
a
it.
Boing Gob
Yeah.
eat it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Or he
We
rides
need a
into
new person
battle.
to cast the Astronomicon. Boing Gob's like,
He's the real Tyranid hive mind.
Jeez.
exactly.
Oh, well,
Uh,
that's all I have on Bealtan. There's probably more, but I have
Say-
not read every Eldar book.
So just a couple things. Like you said, they got back pretty quickly after Bieltan itself. Like the main thing, kind of blew up. They proceeded to learn no amount of humility, and if anything, even though their numbers were reduced because they either died and were eaten by Slaanesh or taken by the Inari, it just made them focus more on like smaller surgical strikes, and they've only gotten better at it, especially because now they're not just one craft world. They can take a whole fleet and go
Mhm.
anywhere with it. So now they're even more obnoxious if you're an Imperial commander and suddenly this dude is telling you to evacuate the planet now.
So they're not like the Death Star; they're like the Rebel fleet now.
Yeah, except the
Yeah, I
Rebel
guess.
fleet if it was like not Episode 9.
Yeah, it's
They,
everyone. Oh my god,
You
they're just regular people.
feel free to blow your load now, guys. Look, it's all of these cool ships.
Oh man,
Yeah.
so silly.
They've got pretty close relations with the Exodites because they are so upset defending Maiden Worlds. That oftentimes Exodites will like fill in their ranks to kind of make sure Bieltan, if they're short a couple Eldar, they'll give you a hand. And they're basically the only Eldar you could hope to wage something like a conventional war. They obviously they prefer the sword wind and the sudden strikes, but if need be, they could like build fortifications, hold down, bunker down, that sort of thing. They prefer not to because it's just not how the Eldar wage war. But given their numbers and everything, they're the only ones that probably could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say they fight a lot less conservative than the rest of the Eldar do. They're a lot less scared of dying. Dying in battle is the best way to die in their opinion.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, not the biggest fans of the Inari. But can't blame them.
Recent events included.
Yeah. And I believe that's Bieltan. Yeah.
Cool.
Now, next we got I'm going to go out of order. I had it. I want to get Ally Talk out of the way. They're not fun.
5
not
minutes.
Do not care for Ally Talk.
They're
Despite being
blue.
one of they're blue and yellow instead of yellow and blue like I am.
Oh, wow.
They're totally different things, guys. I swear.
Indeed.
They've done it in the wrong order.
They are the strictest of all the Eldar craft worlds with the pass system and discipline, they are all about it, and arrogant to the point that it makes most of the other Eldar that have to interact with them tell them to shut up. Yeah, it's also they're so strict to the point that most of the Eldar who are bored on Ally Talk will want to leave Ally Talk because it's so strict and repressive with how close you need to follow the caste system. Which means, short of basically people like the Harlequins or certain really high up Inquisitors, they have the best scouts and information gathering network in the galaxy. They've got Rangers across all of the galaxy, feeding them information. They've got tons of Corsairs harassing fleets that might come to harm the craft world. Because they all do still, Ally Talk is their home, but for the love of God, it's they do not want to be home for longer than they have to be. So they've got a lot of people out there, which on the plus side, again, they've got these probably the best warning systems in the galaxy with all the information they get. On the downside, very small army because everyone born on the craft world thinks it's boring and hell is just stuffy and suffocating. So when they when they fight, especially against the Imperium, usually does not go super hot, which is another one of those things where I'm going to deliver you pure, unfiltered copium on this. In the magical background lore of things, where it's like where it calls the Tyranids the greatest threat, and then we see 10 unbroken Tyranid defeats in a row. They theoretically have a pretty decent record against other factions in the galaxy, because they're all Rangers and Corsairs. It's Imperial commanders out of all the Eldar. It's like fighting ally talk is like fighting ghosts. They're there 1 minute, and then your commander has a hole in his head, and then they're gone. On the other hand, in the actual lore events we get, it is ally talk getting beat the hell up by everyone and shoved into a locker for being big stupid nerds. There was what was it? There was one event where a pretty small amount of Space Marine guardsmen and like the Mechanicus, like it was a lot of like different factions of the Imperium involved, but relatively speaking, not that many of them just kind of show up and just start smashing the craft world to bits and pieces.
Yeah.
It just sucks. It just sucks to be Ally Talk. If you play Ally Talk, I don't know how.
I
so
think they're
sorry.
cool. I
It
think
does
it's
remind
more-
Tibet. It's very reminiscent of the whole Dark Eldar. Like the whole of Comrade basically got screwed by one salamander ship or something.
Yeah,
Probably.
because the Eldar are not allowed to win.
Because they get it's like one salamander ship which has like probably less than 100 Space Marines in it, and all of Comrade was like, "This is a problem. We can't deal with this." I mean, Space Marines in their corridors.
I think they
Yeah.
also got ganged up on by all of the Necron characters. I think that was a late talk, which is unfortunate. I think it's worth saying that the army that they do have is really good though, because they're so like into the paths that they're very perfectionist. So they have some of the best aspect warriors, I feel like.
So yeah, and for what it's worth, like that battle I was talking about, like the Eldar to Imperium death ratio is like 1 to 1,000 or some shit like that. It's just the Eldar do not do wars of attrition; they lose those pretty hard. And the Imperium, it could be 1 to 1,000,000, and they would consider it a resounding win.
Mm-hmm.
With a comment by Engineer of All, he says, Alatok saved the Crimson Fists from extinction, though. Traitor's Gorge in Rin's world. You got to
Oh, yeah, I
give them
remember that,
props for
actually.
that.
That's a little. That's
Thank
like
you,
Codex story.
And they were all like ominous, and they were like, but we'll get you next time. Oh, why? Leave my
fair.
boys alone. Pedro's nice. Vote for Pedro.
They have a
Fair
great.
enough.
They have a great fleet as well. That's the thing.
Yeah, like I said, like part of the like the Corsairs and the like just
You know what
their
this
fleet in
craft
general.
world feels like?
Very good.
This feels like the energy of, it sure is a craft world.
It's cooler when you read it in the Codex and you got all the pretty pictures and stuff. I swear.
It's definitely a craft world.
Dude, undoubtedly that craft world isn't there.
And Illic Nightspear,
Uh,
engineer of all, says it's true.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah. The Path of the Eldar series is about Eldar from Craft World Ally Talk. So hey, one of like 2 Eldar focused books in existence is all about them.
Yeah.
There's not one or
That's
2,
so-
but probably a solid 50% of them.
the coping of like, just please more Eldar level, please.
I will also say I have built-in uncharitable feelings about them, because when I was first getting to Warhammer, I was like, damn, I like Iandon a lot, but I keep confusing them and Ally Talk's color scheme. So when I was first
Also, they
looking at it,
betrayed you in some
so I was
capacity.
so I was like, Ally Talk, they're the blue and yellow. I've heard yellow's a nightmare to paint. I only have to paint a little bit of yellow. And then I found out, no, I actually had to paint almost entirely yellow, and I blame Ally Talk for that.
Bastards.
But that's unfortunately not a canon reason for to dislike them. That's just me being an idiot.
So we all probably have something we don't like in Warhammer that we don't have a legitimately good reason to
Yeah.
not dislike.
Probably.
I think, Colin, you rap on the Alpha Legion. But
I
like,
fully consider that a legitimate reason.
no, okay.
You're not gonna get me on this
What's
one.
your legitimate grievance with them?
I don't think their mysteries are good mysteries. I think it all ends in, but maybe we were lying to you. Yeah.
They should have had one author do all of their books and kept it at that.
I think
Like,
it does
imagine-
make sense though. Like
Imagine if I
only
ended this
caveat there
podcast.
I was just going to say, with one author doing all the books, you do have things like the Salamanders Horus Heresy books. So it can be a bad thing.
Yeah, but like, imagine, Hal, if I ended this podcast and the last thing I told everyone was, actually, maybe I just lied to you about every single thing I just said. That's an Alpha Legion book. Oh, good. Thanks.
you know
I'm glad
what? At least that
I
would
wasted
make it.
my time.
At least that would give it a place where they can make more of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can already make more of it. There are
They just
5
won't.
million craft worlds that have 2
They
pages
won't
of lore.
touch it.
Tops.
Oh man.
The Alpha Legion is to give you 5 million pages and then go, yeah, but like we lie. What if not true? What if unreal?
Yeah.
Engine
Legion is
5.
a good book. Legion
What's
is a
your
great
Eli?
book.
What's your hot take though? What's the thing you don't like that
I
most
don't
people
know.
do?
Thousand Suns, I guess, but I don't like hate them. I just don't think they're that cool. And Death Guard and Thousand Suns. I'm not a big fan. I don't hate them. I think everything in Warhammer is cool, but like, especially the new age like Death Guard look, I just don't like it. I think they look silly and cartoony.
40k Thousand Suns is nothing compared to 30k Thousand Suns.
You ask me my irrational hatred like I don't maul every time Khorne is brought up for no other reason than my first Warhammer game I got bodied by him on the tabletop. I got world eatered.
I dislike Vulcan. That's gonna get me hate from people though. It's
Yeah.
just because Vulcan's whole thing is like he's kind of nice, and then there's no depth to him really. They're really like the dude is a
Yeah.
puddle. In terms of like I like that like little my favorite part about Vulcan is the fact that him hugging Dawn and Dawn being uncomfortable with it, because that shows more about Rogel Dawn being like, yeah, sure, come in, but like, awkwardly tapping him on the shoulder.
It's a very aesthetic puddle you would see in like a nice art painting, but it is a puddle.
I like salamanders though, because
Yeah.
but Vulcan again is just there's no
Thank you, Andy.
they just don't like you know what I was gonna rant about it. So there's like a massive side panel bit. The problem with Vulcan is he doesn't have like a thing in his legion where like there's a fatal flaw. Like the Raven Guard, even though they have barely any law, they have one which is basically like some of them Marines get super depressed.
They do have a fatal flaw. It's called the Horus Heresy book series.
Sure.
Yeah, true.
It's called Isfahan.
Jeez.
But everyone's got like even Gilliman's like Legion had like they had a group which is like they're a bit too, these are a bit too crazy, these guys, and we only
Loose
use them as like
cannons.
like all the salamanders are like we are all noble at heart. There's not one of them that's like I kind of liked it when he killed that Eldar giant.
I think their flaw is that they're so willing to just like martyr themselves. It's like, guys, could you not just throw yourselves in front of these civilians every charge you get? We are losing a lot of men. They weren't even in danger. They were like a few meters away.
The Vulcan Primarch book is him hammering on the forge for 10 hours going, can I go into battle yet, father? No, not yet.
Oh, man.
Can I?
No.
And at the very end he goes, yes. And that's the entire book. The
What?
poor, it's bad. The poor salamanders and like Vulcan have no like struggle. It's so annoying. Sorry, we're here to talk about Eldar, and then to be fair, he did murk an Eldar child, so that
He
Yeah,
did do
he did.
that.
that was the best part. They should have explored that more.
Okay.
The fact that a guy like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
he was meant to be so kind and nice, could falter so horribly.
Could just torch a
Yeah.
child.
Isn't that his most interesting part? If there was no
Yeah, it
Vulcan
is
child
true.
moment, would you even, you know what I mean? Like, is he even
It's
interesting?
all people ever talk about when they mention him, to be fair.
Exactly.
He's nice and he burned a kid.
Yeah,
Gave him the old Iwo Jima.
Jesus.
Oh, it's like the be
So
nice
it's like-
to 1,000 kids and nobody bats an eye. Burn one child and all of a sudden you're the child burner. Poor Vulcan.
Oh, that reminds me of the whole like, listen, if I play one football game a year, am I a footballer? It's like, no. Okay. So if I sleep with one dude, are you call me gay? Like,
You fuck one goat.
and suddenly everyone is
Oh,
all
man.
judgmental.
Andy, I would just like to say you made another mistake with the poll because you're implying anyone's a fan of the end times.
Yeah. True. How
There's
long
got
are
to be
Eldar
at
kids
least a
for?
couple of them, surely. Who
I-
go, it's not that bad.
I refuse to believe that human being exists.
See,
I
Aurora
can't.
puts said, "Damn it, that child was 100 years old, maybe, kinda. It's possible a lot younger, maybe 50, maybe older, maybe younger."
Well, actually, no. I remember having a comment in one of my old YouTube videos of somebody like vehemently defending the end time, saying it was beautiful lore and it was like perfect and amazing. It's like, oh my gosh. I wonder if that guy's doing okay.
Rarest Pepper
Nope.
to say Hell's
Nope, yeah.
Reach showed the Salamander's flaw. They refused to risk civilians by going on the offensive, causing long-term death. I don't think that
Is
was
that a
their
flaw
flaw.
that they're nice?
That wasn't their flaw. That was meant to show the flaw of the Black Templars. That the Black Templars were willing to They were willing to like possibly let all the civilians die just to kill one orc leader. Whereas the it didn't necessarily. To be fair, it's a good point to be fair, but that's not like the Salamander's fatal flaw. That was the Black Templars are the exception to the rule. You know, not every Space Marine Legion would do what the Black Templars did.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Next craft one, I think, is
I, was,
Yes,
I
yes,
think
yes,
we're
yes,
done with Ally
yeah.
talk. Eli, I hope that guy from your channel has testicular torsion.
What does that
Uh,
say?
The
Vulcan's
end times
living.
guy.
Thank you, Andy, for the drawings.
It says Vulcan lives in brackets. She doesn't. There we go.
No.
Poor Eldar child.
Wow, Caleb Collins here with a slander. He says Colin has admitted to finding the end times sounding cool when he first read it.
Yeah, because I didn't know what Warhammer was yet.
Yeah, I was 14 when it happened, and I thought it was cool. But then they got rid of the cool army that I just made, and so then I didn't find it so cool anymore.
Malekith, where are you?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, next one, Simon. You can safely assume going forward that these Eldar are all a little bit more loose with the whole unending discipline shtick that the rest of them are all about. Like Bieltan, this is the other major craft world that is not ruled by its seer council. Instead, they have a clan-based society, and the clan chieftains all cast a vote on major matters of the craft world. The Seer Council does have one vote, and obviously any chieftains, if they want advice or some future seeing done, they're free to go ask the Seer Council for some advice and guidance. But in terms of like practical influence, Seer Council on Simhan is not nearly as influential as it is on the other craft worlds. They're not. I said they're not as strict as the other Eldar. They're not the Dark Eldar. They're not complete degenerates. They're not evil and ruining everything. They're more laid back, is how I like to think about it. They're content to just go with the flow. They don't fall into vice like the former Eldar. They do still have the path system, and they are still determined to not fall back into what the rest of their race did. But they're also not limiting themselves from the little joys of life like the rest of the Eldar are. This does cause some level of distrust from the other Eldar, who see them as barbarians. But it means that I would argue they probably have the most pleasant life out of any of the craft worlds. If you had to pick one to live on, Simhan would probably be a good bet. I'd also like to apologize to Dredanon, who taught us how to say all of these words properly, and I don't remember them. That's my bad.
Although he's pretty chill about it. I mean, I did mention, I sent him a message while going, I'm going to reference one of them in a video. How do you pronounce it? He's like, you can pronounce them however you like. It's your video. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, he's very chill with it.
He's very nice.
I just remember because we had him on, he told us, and I was like, fuck, I can't remember.
That sounds really cool. I wish I could remember any of the inflections or even how it was spelled or how it sounded. I don't know. It's just magical.
Well, I can remember how it's spelled.
Well, yeah.
I'm not
But
illiterate.
phonetically how it's spelled.
Fair enough. They will settle any issues or disputes amongst each other with a duel to first blood, which usually doesn't result in death, but it's not necessarily an unexpected thing if someone dies, and they just they're not happy when that happens, but they're like, hey, it's a valid way to win the duel, first blood. If you cut a guy's head off, you did get first blood, presumably. So, it does happen. Yeah, and they're one of their biggest thing is clan honor. The reason they have all these clans is that before the paths were implemented, but after Slaneshed all over the galaxy and the Eldar in particular, they decided they would restructure the society based around clans in order to focus people's energies on something other than rampant hedonism. So that has kind of ended up with clan honor being the end all be all, but not lame like over in BattleTech. Fuck the clans.
I was just trying to find something because Dreadnon commented on a post of mine I made not long ago asking about questions you want to ask about Warhammer lore, and he said, "What's Angron's problem?" / question mark question mark question mark, and I remember that my reply was inflation. So I just trying to remember that reference there.
He commented on my last community post because all he said was return the slab. Fucking curse
we need Dreadnought
dog.
back on. We need him back on for the tier list or something.
But yeah, with their whole obsession about honor and everything, it's usually honor amongst the clans, which has kind of resulted in them being pretty isolated about galactic affairs at large. They'd instead rather duel each other, just stick to their own thing, enjoy life, or race each other, go fast. Not really concerning themselves with the rest of reality if they can help it. Which is why their insular nature and laid-back attitude, good lord, it does kind of let them get along a little bit better with the Imperium and other races across the galaxy. Not much better. They're not Iyanden actively going out of the way to use diplomacy, but they're also not Biel-Tan, who see you have moved next door and are going to glass the neighborhood because of it.
Damn.
They do their thing. They're actually a decent bit of lore about them because between they were both on Vigilus, and if you remember that Eldritch Omens box, it was them versus the Chaos. And the Helldrake, the New Rangers.
Yeah.
Actually, decent bit of recent lore, surprisingly. Great Rift in Ynnari when that came around. Pardon me, I skipped a bit. Simhan also fully returns the little bit of mistrust that the other Eldar have for them, just because they think they're all boring and stuffy and need to get over themselves. They'll work with each other when need be, but for, Ulthwé, for example, when Ulthwé starts pulling its Tzeentch all-seeing future mystic crap, they will tell them to go to hell and quit using them. They do not have any patience for that crap. Anyway, back to Great Rift in Ynnari. It as with all Eldar, it shook things up. They, of course, did their best to ignore it at first, as they do everything that goes on in the world. Found out they couldn't really do that. A Nurgle invasion led to them having to jettison a decent chunk of the craft world, so I know you were kind of asking earlier, Hal. That had to get rid of it, which, incidentally,
Smell
I think
it.
one, it smelled like dog shit.
It smelled like ass.
Two, I think there was some lore about Eldar insects or Nurgle stuff coming out of that, which will of course never get a model because Chaos Xenos would be too fun to watch. So not getting that.
Damn, Harry in the comments calling out Eli there. Poor Eli tired, all married.
Oh man, I'm a sleepy guy. What can I say?
Eli works hard, very hard. He's doing college
doing
and
YouTube,
as well as this.
marriage. He's doing his studies and everything, and getting ripped. It's a lot of work.
Busy boy.
Yeah. They also don't end up being the biggest fans of the Ynnari either, because while Yvraine was in a meeting with them, Drazar, the Dark Eldar Phoenix Lord guy, found his way through to Simhan through a portal that somehow no one on the craft world knew about, and killed a whole lot of important people on it. So anyone that supported the Ynnari lost a bit of influence as a result of that. And also they lost a whole lot of important Eldar in, the craft world. Not great. Thank you, Drazar.
He's just there.
Yeah.
Being helpful.
There was one, it was Simhan. They were fighting against Necrons on a planet, which was when we got that fun little lore tidbit about the Vault of Slaanesh demons that had been there since the War in Heaven, which is sure a thing that I wish Games Workshop didn't add, but it is what it is. So they ended up teaming up with the Necrons to hold back the incursion, and they even sent a couple seers they have to, once they had everything cleaned up, to keep the vault secure. Which, is pretty cool of them. It seems like, overall they're happy to work with anyone if it's to fight against chaos or some other threat, which is pretty neat. They were also on Vigilus, which, long story short, because I'm not going to sum up the entirety of the Vigilus campaign right now, they went there to attack some Chaos cultists and were mistaken for the Dark Eldar by some Imperial nobles and guard officers, because the Dark Eldar had just been there earlier attacking guardsmen. And they opened fire on the Eldar, even when they were like, "No, we're not Dark Eldar. Look at the spikes. We don't have any." So they ran off a bit. Marneus Calgar met with them, and in exchange for the Eldar's help in defeating Chaos and handing the orcs and everything, he would take all of the officials who ordered all those Eldar to be shot at, put them in a building, and lock the door behind them, and just told Simon to go nuts. So,
Jesus.
One brutally murdered batch of Imperial officials later, Simon started doing donuts in front of the orcs and lured them into the orc line, or into the Chaos lines, and helped deliver a Imperial torpedo into directly into Abaddon's flagship, I believe, on one of their ships. So hey, they're pretty chill to work with, turns out. They might ask to murder some of your leaders, but it's the Imperium. Your leaders are probably incompetent anyway. Mm-hmm. So, it works out. There was also, like I said, that Eldritch Omens little bit. That whole thing was Chaos Warpsmith wanted the world spirit of a maiden world for, dark, evil, demon things. Eldar souls are nice and juicy. He could probably make some pretty potent soul, Eli, what's the
Risotto.
awful Chaos Dragon thing you don't like? The model.
The Helldrake?
Helldrake, yeah. You could probably make some good Helldrakes out of the Eldar souls he pilfered. Simhan went to deal with them, and at, a decent cost, but given, I've got the Eldritch Omen books, not that, not like that lore thing, not as much cost as you would think for the Eldar. It wasn't a 99% of them got killed. It was just a solid victory. Not great, but hey, not bad. What are some last little things? Wild Riders are their jet bike riders, and pretty much everyone who is not a chieftain who has to become an autarch is a wild rider. They love their jet bikes. They love their speed. On the battlefield, they are all about speed. Vipers, the wind bikes, all that good stuff. Even more so than any other, even Biel-Tan, because Biel-Tan does it with sudden strikes across the planet. Simhan just has 5 million jet bikes doing donuts in front of your lines at all moments, and it's really annoying. What else? Clans are those clans.
40K.
The clans in there are pretty autonomous. They have the right to partake or refuse to partake in pretty much anything the craft world does. Although in practice, if something big happens, they're probably all going to get on in it because they need that glory. May have inspired the orcs to think red is Fasta. And overall, probably the Eldar you'd most want to have a party with. They're pretty chill. They seem like they'd be pretty happy to have you as long as you're not a dick.
Mm-hmm. I think we should say, when the Necrons went to sleep, Alatok were the ones who were going around blowing up tomb worlds and looking for them to kill them. That's another thing Alatok did.
I like
they exist, guys.
One day and they're like,
they
what's
exist.
going? Oh no, get rid of these.
Yeah, bro, guys, Alatok. People care about us. I swear.
Yeah, the battle where the Necron Lords fought against Alatok is when Orc and the Diviner out-Farseered the Farseers with math, and then just messed up their prophecy and killed them.
I love when the only thing my faction has isn't allowed to work. Thank you.
God.
I love the Inari trilogy. I love Psychic Awakening. Yeah, I love Eldrad.
There's a new Same Hand Wild Rider book that apparently I've only heard horrible things about it. I don't know if you've read it or not. But...
No, I haven't. I didn't know it existed. Probably because the only news about it is bad.
It doesn't exist if he hasn't read it. It's fine.
Bro, come on.
It's called Wild Rider, and I've only seen my only knowledge is the memes that I've seen about it. That it's.
I just just want an Eldar book to be okay. Okay books are fine. You read them, you go, that was a decent book, and then you move on with your life.
They did
Colin's
the
like
same
that-
thing like they
that's,
did with Tau, where they gave it to Phil Kelly, who
Someone who
writes all
loves
the
the Tau.
Yeah, Phil
he
Kelly
writes-
writes all good Xenos.
he
lore.
writes all the Farsight books, and
Yeah.
that guy just does a great job. So just give it to someone who's good. Just
and
let
he
him
wrote
have a
the
range.
like older Eldar codexes too.
Stop.
So
Stop giving Eldar books to people who hate the Eldar.
I just like the bit in The Simpsons where it's the kid being beaten up, and that's just Colin. They're publishing new books. It's like, stop! He's already dead.
Just grab someone from the Age of Sigmar elf teams. They clearly love what they're doing. Let them write an Eldar
yeah,
book.
for real. Jeez.
Oh, no more Simon now. I was feeling good about Simon. I like talking about them, and then you had to drop that on me.
I think there's a cool bit where then they're like briefly in the Iron Hands novels where they end up fighting Catachan jungle fighters, and then basically the Eldar goes like, "Damn, you're actually like pretty decent for a human," and then like proceeds to like slice his arm off while he's holding a grenade, and then the guy still fights. He's like, oh, he's like kind of impressed, but then he's like, oh, but he's still human, and just like gone. They show
Nice.
up. They represent sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like that Ultramarine one where he gets his head cut off at the top in that Hammer and Bolter episode. Where I can't remember which clan it is, where they just
I don't
go,
want to think
"What
about
you
that
mean?"
Hammer and Bolter.
Just that
episode,
little
Andy.
bit
Don't
of
talk
his
about
head
it. Don't talk
is
about it.
available. It's like, I'm wearing this
Don't-
helmet.
don't
apart
talk
from
about
here.
it.
Anyway, Ulthway.
Oh,
The
bastards.
craft world
Oh.
whose entire lore is just Eldrad.
And a Night
Uh,
Lords trilogy, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough. They're somehow both the most and least famous craft world. Most, again, because like I said, their lore is Eldrad. Eldrad is hard carrying the Eldar race and Ulthway in particular on his back. He's 40k techless, just not nearly as competent, unfortunately.
Tough.
Long story short, Ulthway was one of the last craft worlds to leave the Eldar Empire. Like I said earlier, they didn't quite get out of the way fully. It's like, they got clipped. They didn't get T-boned by the truck barreling towards them, but they got clipped. They weren't instantly devoured, so they got that going for them. But like I said, stuck close to the Eye of Terror, which means that at any given moment, they're either fighting chaos or preparing to fight chaos. The whole craft world is covered in battle scars. They just don't have time to repair it properly. And it's just generally not great. Like, the first thing, let's say, prior to the Great Rift, you're a Chaos Space Marine leaving the Eye of Terror. You're either going to run headfirst into Ulthway or Cadia. So, this has led to, they're trying to, they have become all focused on like the paths of the seer as a result, so they can predict when these chaos attacks are coming and figure out the best way to get through it. What the great minds think alike. Two heads are better than one. All these seers coming together, looking at fate and figuring out, how do we not get murdered? Which on the downside means that they do not have that many other aspect paths, not because they're particularly underpopulated compared to other craft worlds, but because just most of the ones who might become like a fire dragon or something like that are a warlock or a farseer. But to counteract this, they're the only craft world that has a standing army. The Black Guardians. They're a proper army, unlike the rest of the other Eldar Guardians, who are just militia called up to fight in need. They train, they do all that stuff. Everyone on Ulthway can fight. In some ways, they have the most allies out of any Eldar. They'll work alongside pretty much anyone, short of Chaos and the Tyranids, Imperium, other Eldar, probably even the Orcs, if they could somehow convince them to not just fight the pointy heads. Work with anyone. In other ways, because they're all manipulative bastards, no one really likes working with them. They know that probably in the long term, their actions will result in lives being saved. They're just so insufferable. They will frequently just not tell you they're working to help everyone. They will not even inform you there's any fate reading going on. They'll just show up and be like, yes, this is what we're going to do, and then they turn around and start doing something else because they foresaw X needed to happen, and you don't need to know about X. Don't worry about it, bro.
Sounds like a typical Eldar to me.
Simon Han would not be happy with you saying
Smug
that.
bastards.
They're the kind of guys who put likes on prank videos on YouTube, but don't make them themselves.
The model of their craft world is, dude, trust me, bro.
Yeah.
They do have some, more permanent allies though. Like out of all of them, Navigator House Belisarius, a Navigator House for the Space Wolves. Early on, and I mean like M31, I believe it was, they helped House Belisarius out of a bit of a rough spot, reversed their fortunes, and in return, the Navigators gifted them 7 coins. Anytime an Eldar from Ulthwé presents a Navigator, of that house with the coin, they drop whatever the hell they're doing and help that Eldar out with whatever task is asked of them, which has been done 5 times. So those last 2, they better make it count.
That's pretty
cool. Could you
cool,
imagine if it was like I was going to say, could you imagine if it was like a really pressing thing and you left the coin at home? Like the equivalent of you going to get a flight and you forget your passport and you get to the gate and you're like, oh no. Like turning into eating your craft world or something.
Trust me, bro. Like Colin said earlier. Trust me, bro. I swear I had the coin.
Yeah.
House Belisarius is, I think, because after the Space Wolves books I read, it's like basically the biggest Navigator house in like the Imperium. So it's actually pretty ridiculously powerful.
I think they also have like a Space Wolf honor guard because they have such close ties. They're like, we send a couple of our guys to you just to protect you because you're that important.
So Space Wolves could be forced to work with.
I say from what I read, they try and keep it on the down low a bit. Keep the Space Wolves in the dark about it. Which House Belisarius is still around and hasn't been executed for consorting with Xenos, so
there's an opportunity here, Colin. You could have a book, right? It'll be a Space Wolf book, but it'll have the Ulthwé in it, and then Belisarius, and then you'll have a moment where they begrudgingly become friends, and then like the Space Wolf gets the Eldar drunk on Mjod, and he almost has to have like a liver transplant, and that'd be a fun way to get some Eldar lore in there somehow.
A good
Do
time
they even have
by all.
livers?
I'm assuming
you could have that line, for a knife here, you're actually pretty cool.
I do have a question about just in craft wars in general. Do they look like their own unique thing, or are they sort of reminiscent of like the old Eldar cities? Because essentially they're just floating cities, right?
Yeah, like inside them. I believe they're like when they were when the fall was happening, they got as much stuff out of the fall as they could. Like any relics they might be able to snout or scrounge up. Obviously, people. That being said, like the craft worlds, they were merchant vessels that would go centuries, if not longer, at a time without any contact with other Eldar between the worlds. So if they did look like Eldar cities, it would probably be like ancient cities, even by Eldar standards. Because, like I said, craft world is built, it's not going to see anyone else for 1,000 years. And then another 1,000, on and on and on until, the fall happens.
That's cool, because to their equivalent then, that's like, for us, if there was a ship just in the ocean that was filled with the architecture of, like, ancient Rome.
Yeah.
And I was like, so even to, like, Eldar later, they were like, oh, that's kind of neat. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of,
Although whenever I think of Craft World, I think of Mass Effect, what they called, the Quarians, where, like, their whole species was completely decimated by AI. So then they fled on these big flotillas and they just roam the galaxy on these massive ships.
Yeah. They're the ones
and they're like,
suits.
we can't breathe air outside of our envirosuits because our immune system's so weak. But it's just like a similar thing of they're just nomadic. They roam around. It's like, if we lose one of those ships, it's a bad day. It's a really bad day.
That's what it is, yeah. You lose one craft world, it's... Yeah. Let's see, where was I at? I would say, yeah, their history is like, for every time they hurt the Imperium pretty horribly, they also have saved it. For example, and this is, again, Ulthwé is Eldrad. Eldrad is the one you can blame Armageddon on. The orcs were going to threaten a small Eldar craft world. He redirected them straight to Armageddon and led to all that fun stuff happening. On the plus side...
Poor Yarrick.
But on the plus side, he's the reason the last wall doctrine, the Imperial Fist, were able to get together. He calmed the warp and allowed them to just all meet up at Terra, which, by the way, pretty goddamn awesome. He told the entire warp
Cheers,
to just
Eldrad.
chill the hell out for a bit. But yeah, for their part with the Ynnari, very mixed bag with things. Because, on the one hand, Eldrad was the one to bring that about. And especially in Ulthwé, you don't get higher up on the totem pole than Eldrad. On the other hand, the ritual was not a success, and in order to perform the ritual, because originally it was every Eldar dies, then we get Iniad, he went to a moon of basically psychic crystals after having stolen all of the seers he could from every craft world. He just went into the Infinity Circuit, grabbed their soul stones, and said, hey, I'm going to use you to make the God of the Dead. So they weren't too happy with him. They were going to execute him, but they banished him instead. And a large chunk of the craft world went with him because they still believed Eldrad was, he's the mover and shaker of the Eldar. He's the one who's going to get stuff done. Let's go follow him. Let's join his exiles. At one point, he came back to rescue it from chaos and then promptly left again because he's still exiled. And overall, Ulthwé is now free of the Eye of Terror. They can move a little bit farther because it's the Great Rift everywhere. On the downside, they are, as with pretty much every Eldar after the Ynnari stuff happened, a little bit diminished, still looking forward. They're still all about, their future seeing thing, though. None of them really had a great central change. And, that is...
They're also kind of in danger as well, currently. The whole thing is, in the Night Lords trilogy, they intervene with the Night Lords Legion because they believe a great prophecy about a prophet of the 8th Legion will unite all the war bands and eventually cause catastrophe on Ulthwé. So they basically are preparing for a massive confrontation with all the Night Lords. For, as you can probably guess, no reason other than it was prophesized. So. But the fact that the fact that they intervened put them on the Night Lords map, like on their radar. So that's the only reason. Like they are basically the architects of their own destruction in a way.
Oh yeah, since Ulthwé is all about, the Psykers and stuff, they're the biggest victims of that, where GW writers think they're being very clever when they go, but they caused it by their own actions. The 50th time we do this plot line, it's still original. Look, we blew up an Avatar of Cain too. Look, guys, it's all the greatest Eldar hits.
Especially with that Night Lords trilogy bit, it just reminds me of Star Wars prequels. It's just like, the prophecy of the Chosen One was like, that's the wrong one. It's his son, innit? Oh no. So basically, the Jedi Council are Ulthwé, and Samuel L. Jackson is Eldrad. Referring to the
How
prophecy.
different would the galaxy be if Anakin was made a Jedi Master? Shame.
All good. We'd be sitting pretty. Still be a republic.
Which is the craft world where they had to work with Commorragh to do the Eldar Seed had to do that massive bomb, and then they had to sacrifice a few.
I think that was Iyanden with the fire heart.
Like the massive bomb where the Dark Eldar could have activated it remotely, but they're like, nah, just.
Well, I think if it's what I'm thinking of, the Dark Eldar couldn't use it because all of the old Eldar Empire stuff. Yeah, and the Dark Eldar have left their psychic aspects at trophy. So, but they're not going to give it to the Craftworld Eldar because it's a big bomb, and the Dark Eldar are selfish at the best of times. But they did eventually give it to Iyanden, who activated it and then promptly put it away because the Eldar do not like to mess around with their super weapons. I was going to say something else and I don't remember.
It's about Ulthwé. They're going to get it.
It was something about Ulthwé, and probably they were going to get it. Thank you, Eldrad, for being all of the Ulthwé lore. Truly, you are carrying it on your back.
There's Luganeth. That's a craft world that I think they just made up for Fabius Bile to destroy, basically.
Probably. There's a couple other craft worlds I just briefly took notes on. The big five are the one that will do anything that matter. I guess there is Altan Sar, which is where Maugan Ra comes from. They got trapped in the warp. They didn't quite get out of the Eye of Terror, but somehow didn't get instantly devoured. And then 10,000 years later, Maugan Ra pulled it out of the warp. Not I don't know how that one works. If anyone has any suggestions, I would love to hear it.
Maybe not. Maybe like no time had passed with them at all. They were like, "Jesus, we've been in this little thing for 5 minutes." Like, "Oh, thank God we're saved." And then it's like, "Yo,
Yeah.
you got
Maybe.
He
Morgan
pulled an
Ross,
ultramarine tactic from the Codex to start. He's like, we'll just do something crazy for fun.
Morgan Ra's the only Eldar that is allowed to have W's, it seems.
Yeah. I don't even mean how he still found them. I meant just like, how did he get it out? Is what I'm confused.
Because he's
Like,
Morgan Ra, bro.
fair enough. He is built different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. All of the Eldar think they're cursed because they're thinking, no, you should be able to spend that long in the warp and still be fine. What's going on there? So they never take off their helmets, and they only speak in whispers. So something, whether or not they're cursed, they were lost in the warp for 10,000 years. Something went down, and it's generally not super outgoing Eldar, as it were, because everyone else thinks they're cursed.
So they probably get on really well with the Karkarodons. Like, you do the whispering thing too. Yeah, we do the whispering thing. Oh, that's cool. You were also lost in the void. Yeah, we are too. We're cool. Nice.
They're actually pretty close to Terra, the craft world.
Oh.
Although, I believe the reason, I don't think it's ever stated. But I'm
move,
guessing what?
They can move about though. They don't.
Well, yeah, one they can move, and two, the Imperium is probably content with letting them sit there because they're like, well, they pretty clearly don't like chaos. You just kind of sit there and eat any Black Legion warbands coming this way for us, will you? But yeah, that's really them. What are the other ones I wrote down? There's Mimira, which is the opposite of Altansar. They think all of the other Eldar are cursed, and they were the last true ones left. Really not much to say more about it.
Did they get on a boat called the Mayflower and then they decided to leave?
There's what was that? Yume Lok. I know that.
You may look.
Myeloc.
Yumbre. Look or whatever.
I don't
Yume
know.
Lok
I
or
apologize for
Jesus.
that pronunciation.
What is that name?
Yeah, they're what I like to call the Forge World Craft World because their whole thing is Eldar Titans. So if you're playing them, Forge World loves you. There's Ilkaith. Their name translate into knowledge of blood, which is that goes pretty hard. They're all about bone singers. And then there's the final craft world I'd like to bring up, only because of the name, Crudorak. It is a craft world that
sounds like an orc STD. What is that?
Probably. Their lore, they're from the Rogue Trader game. They got lost. No one knows what the craft world is.
Whoops.
No.
Jeez.
The Ranger companion, I guess, from the Rogue Trader games from there. So neat to see they gave us a new craft world and just copy Iyanden or Oathway or something.
Yeah.
Did we also mention the Black Library, like the actual?
Yeah, I guess it is a craft world, so it's a brief mention for now at least. The Black Library is a craft world. It has the largest repository of knowledge in reality inside of itself, especially on Chaos. And it's guarded by the Harlequins and the last remaining Eldar god who hasn't been handicapped in some way, Kegarak, the Honk god, clown god. People keep trying to break in.
Yeah,
and it doesn't really
break in.
It doesn't really work because the Harlequins, alongside Malgan Ra, are the only Eldar allowed to take anything resembling a W. And it's in the webway. So you have to get in the webway, then you have to go through the webway without getting murdered by either its defenses or a chaos incursion. Then you need to get past the Harlequins, which is probably something you just need to kind of always consider. Then you need to get past a god. And I think the Black Library even has its own special defenses that even the Eldar are like, I have no idea what the hell this thing is.
It's a bit cursed, isn't it? There's something not quite right with it.
Yeah, probably because one, it has so much chaotic knowledge. Probably something went down. Oh, hello. And two,
It's just
He needs emotional support talking about all this Eldar stuff.
oh my god. Poor
That is a
Black
loving
Library.
life or loving wife. Make fun of him.
No, the Black Library itself, though, is a few people have been invited to it, haven't they? Though, like
Yeah,
Inquisitor
there's
has.
Ephriel Stern, I think that Sister of Battle lady. There's some Inquisitors are allowed every now and then if the Harlequins are sure that they're not going to fall to chaos. But for the most part, everyone who tries to break in is never heard from again. Or you're Ozzy Araman and you're a named character, so
You
you're
get banished
never gonna die.
constantly. He's trying. He literally is like a Scooby Doo villain. It's just like he's
And I
gosh
would have gotten
darn
it away
kids.
with it too if it weren't for those damn Harlequins.
For you meddling clowns and your stupid god too.
Yeah.
Didn't he bring all of Armin's friends back for a second and then kill them all again?
Yvraine did.
You've
and then
brought
she,
back two of them.
She went.
she shunted them into the warp.
She resurrected two Rubric Marines, and Armin went, "Holy hell, that's amazing!" And then she threw them into the warp, and he was like, "No!" And he like, ran after them.
You know what I say to that? El Bozo.
Oh, poor
Stop
Armin.
trying to break into the Black Library and it won't happen.
Every once in a while, like one Rubric Marine gets revived, and then so every time he's about to give up, like one Rubric Marine gets revived, and he's like, "Ariman, what the hell's going on?" And he's like, "You're alive. I guess we got to keep trying again, boys."
Time to kill 10 million people.
No, yeah,
He's
no
literally
one.
the meme of if at first you don't succeed, try.
He truly
try,
is the
try,
Rocky
try,
Balboa.
Try
of
again.
chaos. Jesus, he never gives up. Poor Iron Man,
hmm
though.
He should.
Is there any other craft wars like that? Like, is it just mostly like the ones that are named and there's nothing?
It's just like random.
I will admit I did a bit of a sin. I pulled up the wiki for some of these.
But you have to. It's
Hey,
just
no
random
problem using the wiki sometimes.
off stuff. Yeah.
Telenar. Let me just read you the opening paragraph. Is a minor craft world of the Asuryani. They could not think of a better opening than to just say they're a craft world.
That's
Good,
obscure
another
Space
banger.
Marine levels.
It truly is a craft.
They have good relations with Alaitak. Oh, fucking wonderful, dude! It is the Alliance of Mid.
That's just like the entry. This Space Marine chapter is known for being brutal and very courageous.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, did you mean all of them?
Yeah.
They have an affinity. What?
What?
I misread. I thought it said the Eldar of Telenar have an affinity with the Eldar of Telenar. It's like, oh, I fucking hope. They like the Harlequins, which is also a nothing statement
my
because
God.
every
Wow.
Eldar likes the Harlequins.
Even the Dark Eldar like how the Harlequins.
Yeah.
It's like this is what the craft rules that aren't the main ones are. It's, hey guys, they like the
Yeah.
clouds. They're
It's
there.
It's
It
even
really
worse than
is
the successor chapter slop.
the short is a craft world. Energy is so high, and some
There
it was a craft world.
there was Malantai that got eaten by genes. No, they didn't get eaten by gene stealers. The Neuralictor or
They
Neuraloper.
self-sabotaged, didn't they?
The Doom
One-
of Malantai used to be
Yeah,
a
the
unit.
dude, it was
it is still.
one of the Eldar Psyker brain things ate their infinity circuit and then blew up the craft world. Basically,
Mm.
they didn't blow it up. The Grey Knights,
A
like,
gene stealer W, common, isn't it? You're like, common
that
gene
was
stealer
that was a
W.
completely different one. There was a craft world that I don't remember the name of. Which that, my bad, Pim. It basically just left the galaxy. Like they dipped out early.
Wow.
And this isn't the Inari books, which I think is another reason I don't want to remember the name of this fucking craft world. Although this is one of the few cool things. They had, because they had no contact, they had nothing, no path system, no spirit stones. And then they found gene stealers, and they're like, well, the hive mind's probably better than Slanesh. So they willingly infected themselves with gene stealers.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
no.
And then
Oh,
somehow
no.
a gene stealer possessed an avatar of Cain. And then it stopped being cool. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you, Yanari.
Wow.
Oh, man.
I'm an avatar of Gene. Like, oh no.
Oh, that's recent lore you said?
Relatively, Yanari.
Jeez.
So recent, even at this point, like
Yeah,
that's not
that
that
is,
recent
yeah.
anymore.
They did it to try and escape the effects of just existing as an Eldar.
Yeah.
Slanesh can be draining you, so that
so
was
yeah,
they tried to circumvent that, but then they ended up Just
I can't wait
sabotage.
for the
Gene
next
Stealer
entry.
Yeah, like the-
Avatar. Oh my
I
gosh.
can't wait for the next big entry for the Eldar being that one of the craft world sides with the Tau and helps with the greater good, and then they just have like an avatar of Kyle, and he's just a nice guy. It's like,
That,
I
that
used
was,
to be angry, but now
The
I'm
four
fine.
armed Kane, by the way,
I
will go
heard
so
in-
hard.
I heard in like 2010, like around like 14, something around that time. There was kind of that on the tabletop, Andy. I think it was just called
He's Taudar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
The scourge of all local tabletop
And the
games.
no.
Eldar Tau Alliance, whose best
Yeah.
solution against
You would
this
have
would
a-
be
no.
You'd have a Farseer on a jet bike going around with like XVA battle suits, and he'd be casting the Eldar powers on the crisis suits, so they would just be like impossible to deal with pretty
Oh
much.
no.
and the
That was like
solution to that
76.
was bring a warlord titan to the
Yeah.
Oh god, my coke went down the wrong pipe.
Yeah, the Tau heresy with the Eldar has caused Colin to have some sort of, like medical emergency there. Just
Thank you, DJ Beast, for the four-armed avatar of Kane is the best god. That is so true.
No.
At least if he had
Big
more
Gene
arms, he
Stealer
might
win.
stand a chance. Hopefully. So sorry.
And
Uh,
that's about the craft worlds. Oh, any questions?
Just about daily life on the craft world, I guess, because but for most of the time they're not really. We only see most of the Eldar at war. So, what's like
Yeah.
most of the time they do on craft worlds? I guess it's just following the paths, and then
It is like dependent on the craft worlds. Like I was saying, like Simhan is, they're a lot more chill with it. They're a little bit more laid back. What was it? Like Ally Talk again is much more strict with it. So they're going to be like, you are doing this and only this. But like the crafts, like I said, are the path. Man, I'm having some
the
problems.
craft of the path.
The crafts of the paths. The paths are like, it's not just the warrior ones. It's just warriors are the only ones we see because it's a tabletop war game. Like craft of the botanist, stuff like that. Like there's like research paths. There's other stuff they do.
So it's
like,
quite nice. It can be like quite nice, like bougie inside these craft worlds.
yeah, like they're all very disciplined, and they're not like they're generally not going out of their way to party it up because that's what caused Slaanesh in the first place.
So they
But-
don't have like a downtown Chicago.
No, they do not have a Chicago.
Section.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe the bits
Like, it's
that
all
Ally
nice.
Talk got space marined and smashed up. But overall, like there's like they're a post scarcity society. They're disciplined, but they don't like they're not going to want for like basic necessities. Craft worlds are pretty nice to live in.
Damn, great view as well. To be fair, just looking
Yeah.
at the sky.
Mhm.
Lucky
And, I think-
bastards.
I think there's also like what is it? Like they're bigger on the inside than they are on the outside. Like they're magical elf spaceships.
What, the
That's
TARDIS?
a typical Eldar thing.
Doctor
Like,
Who
it's actually
TARDIS
bigger
thing.
on the inside, I promise. It's 5
Nah.
inches, 7 on a good day. What?
7 on a good day.
Yeah, but yeah, like there's magical stuff going on with it. Like there's a building in all of them, the Dome of the Crystal Seers, which is where like the Farseers and other specialized psychers will go to meditate. That's got it connects to the Infinity Circuit. I think that's where especially there's a lot of psychic shenanigans going on. They are like in day-to-day Eldar life. It's probably the highest standard of living in 40K outside of like High Lords of Terra.
So is it kind of like Space Rivendell?
That's what I like.
Basically,
to
most of the time.
Yeah.
Then.
Spivendell.
Damn, they have like
Nah,
waterfalls in space, lucky bastards.
Yeah.
think.
I mean, the craft world, it is a spaceship, but it's also a spaceship the size of a planet that is the last refuge of their people. It's not like
Are they
They're-
planet size or continent size? I never can
It
tell.
varies. They said that the Bealtan one was moon sized, so I mean, I don't know.
it
Take a
varies.
choice.
I mean,
Fair enough.
continent-sized spaceship is still a pretty damn big spaceship.
Yeah.
The one in Battlefleet Gothic, like there's a mission where you can fight in front of one. It is it takes up the screen.
Jeez.
Mm.
Like stretches way into the background.
What about in comparison to, say, like the Phalanx with the Imperial Fist? Because that's like the biggest thing the Imperium has. Is it like comparable size?
Two phalanxes.
Oh yeah,
you take a phalanx.
Probably
Size of
way
a
bigger.
small moon or large asteroid. Craft rolls are going to be way bigger than
Right.
like a large asteroid is.
So like several Blackstone fortresses combined would be one craft world.
Blackstone Fortress are pretty big, though, I thought.
Because they're comparable to the Phalanx, aren't they? They're like similar sizes, or are they?
That might be just because of the game,
think-
though.
Oh, I say in the game.
Battlefield Gothic might have changed that.
Well, they vary in size. Some of them will be small. Some of them will be.
Well, yeah,
big,
it's also one of those things. Like, it depends on the writer. Like, there's been books where like Warlord Titans are like a mile tall, and then like I think the official estimate now that was like 144 meters. I have that number in my head. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But so like it depends on who's writing it, what kind of tone they're going for. So Craftworld's like, I just looked at Warlord Titan, 32.72 meters. It was 144 feet is about what that is.
Right.
Ah.
I don't know.
So-
I just kind of like the idea of you talking about the standard of living inside the craft world. It's just like a letting agent being like, "Welcome to this craft world from Bieltan. Every room has a swimming pool and an ice hockey table. Oh, this looks lovely." And then there's all the Imperial citizens just like eating bits of their dead relatives to survive. You're like, yeah, bit of
The
a different
protein
standard of
bar.
living.
Question
You too.
mark.
You too could live on this craft world, except you're a human. We're going to shoot you.
No, human smell. No,
We don't like
not
your
allowed in.
kind around here, literally.
Just like the treehouse things, it's like no monkey allowed, just stapled on the side.
I think they're pretty cool, to be honest, though. Although, again, like, we just need to see more of it. I just don't know if they really have, like, in the grand narrative, that they don't use or utilize something this cool enough. Like, if a battle takes place on a craft world, I mean, they had which is the one where it had the Legion of the Damned appeared? Is that Iandin as well?
I think
Yeah.
that was.
I think, as I remember,
think
seeing
that was-
Blue and yellow were in the scheme. Of
I'm
the,
pretty sure it happened to Iandin.
Was it Iandin?
'Cause there's-
No,
there's
it was
big
it was
pictures
at
of it.
Hare.
Oh,
Oh, they probably
Iandin
so.
no name
was-
brand.
Iandin was allied with them. It was like stuff after a
Oh.
High Fleet Behemoth. They were fighting High Fleet Naga and destroyed it, and then the Legion of the Damned showed up, and then
Yeah. To be
And
fair, the only thing
wonderful.
about a craft world is kind of like the Assault of the Rock. It's like you don't want to have that in a war zone. That's a bad risk. It's like only cataclysmic, like, oh, it's going to endanger our whole craft world. Are you going to have like it involved? I would assume they're not going to be like, let's just do a careless orbital bombardment and have it in proximity to ambush. You know?
yeah, they do not bring craft worlds to the front because as much as it's a gigantic ship with massive weapon batteries and whatnot, it's also their home.
It's also where their nice 4K tellies are and all
Yeah.
that stuff. It's like I don't want that getting broken.
It'd be so cool in a story though, just because a lot of stories often just go the space Hulk route, where if they want to have like just an enormous shipyard to play in, they could just pivot something into a craft world. Like, because again, you can imply that a lot of the sections of the craft world have been like essentially because the population's just not big enough. Some sections could be dead and like empty, and any story taking place in there would be actually pretty sick. Because again, it's just different
Yeah.
scenery. In
Or maybe
Warhammer.
the
Yeah.
Gene Stealers or the Tyranids invade one and they have to like purge their craft world of all the like hidden like, oh, we haven't been in this district for ages because we haven't got enough people. Oh no, the Tyranids are now huddled in there.
There.
Oh.
Yeah,
Let's get
that
out.
I mean, that is like kind of almost standard on a lot of the craft worlds. Very few of them have enough population to like reach max capacity. Like especially Iandin, there's entire like noble courts consisting entirely of Wraith Guard and Wraith Lords.
God, pretty eerie.
Obviously, yeah, like
Yeah.
the most populated Eldar craft world is going to be a little bit lonely. The least populated is going to look like a ghost.
Jesus.
Could even have one of the nicer craft worlds taking in some human refugees, and then they have like a delegation from another one say, I smell monkeys. Like, no, no. And then you have like a little bit of a strife between them, like, we shouldn't just kill them because they are lesser species. And they're like, yes, we should. You could have a little story about
Can we
that.
rant about the fact that they don't call humans monker because it's a because they look like monkeys, but it's because
Yeah.
it's a slur related to an ancient Xenos that tried to enslave them.
Yeah,
Did
that's
you get
one. Yeah, I mean that's one of those things. It's like, yeah, clearly out of universe monkey, in universe they're just being
Land
stupid with
Raider.
it.
Or, no, Ark
Land
and
Speeder.
Yeah, Ark and Land's Land Raider and
It's
Land.
not called that because it speeds across the land. It's invented by Ark and Land, and then everyone joked about that happening to the Astartes, and then it turns out Astarte was the name of the head of the project. Thanks
Yeah,
to
Wraith
Horus
Knights-
Heresy.
What's
Wraith
the one
Knights
with
aren't
the
called Wraith Knights because they have spirits in them. It's because the Eldar known as Wraith Magul created the first chassis. It's like, I don't know.
What's the one with it's the walkers that the Mechanicus can't turn them off because and they leave them on treadmills
Oh, those,
walking
yeah.
when they're not being used in battle because they think if they turn them off they don't know how to turn them on again.
Yeah,
So they
because the
build
guy who
them,
woke them up,
turn
he
them
fixed
on,
them,
and they
then
never
he
turn them
died.
off again. So when they're not in battle, there's an army of like walkers on treadmills constantly walking. So
Nice.
Or like a hamster wheel. That'd be good.
gotta love Warhammer. I think with that being said, though, that was probably that was all of the craft wars that had lore we could say anything about.
Well,
Does anyone else wants to add anything? Last comments? No, I think we.
Eldar are cool.
I
Eldar
think
are
I'd be
cool.
okay if they blew up Ally Talk.
Come on.
In a few pieces. Humble.
Talk's cool.
With that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We do have stuff on Spotify if you want to listen to things on there, if it's like in offline mode. And if you made it this far as well, probably should always ask us earlier, like and subscribe because it helps us out. We do live lore every sort of Friday, and tune in. I think we've got another tier list one coming up soon, which will we haven't quite decided that, but that will it'll be something ridiculous. So we're going to go argue through that. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.
And remember, the only good Eldar is a dead one.
So sad.
Ooh, he says.